Are you going to drag the two of us back so you can introduce yourself and that sort of thing?
Yeah, that probably makes sense.
We are live, by the
I
way.
hit go live. It doesn't. Is it on?
No, we are live.
YouTube?
Yes, we're live. Hello, everybody.
Okay. Well then, hello everyone. Welcome to Dr. Dino. This is my channel. This is Beamsy, my co-host for this new show we're beginning, and below me is Mark Reed, a guest. Today
Hello.
we're going to be taking a look at what creationists think of the Ice Age, what they think might have caused it and brought it to an end, and, well, just general misunderstandings of science will ensue. So let's all have a good time.
Yeah.
Beamsy, would you like to introduce yourself for the first time?
I'm just basically a geologist that met Dr. Dino through random streams, and I am a Ingedex serviceman, if that helps.
Does that help? It helps a little.
It explains my profile picture.
Uh-huh.
Mark, anything to say about yourself?
Hello, I'm Mark Reed. I'm a debater. This person does discussions on YouTube. I enjoy theology. I enjoy talking philosophy. I enjoy talking about science. I enjoy all of this stuff, and it actually annoys me that this segment doesn't have a name. And I thought I would offer up maybe something like geocentrism or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's too much of the geocentric model of
Sorry, what segment?
Well, whatever you're doing here.
Oh, I have it titled A Scientific Response to Creationist Claims.
You need something snappy, my friend. You need rock salt or something, like
well,
Dr. Dino's rock salt.
The alternate title is Meltdown.
Meltdown. There you go. That's good. I like it.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of segments, we have another person who has just joined us. Hello, Ember.
Hello.
Amber? Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, my apologies for the delay. My alarm went off saying it was time for the show, and I checked my Discord, and yeah.
You're fine.
Busy
Wanna
day.
tell the viewers about yourself, what you do?
Alrighty. Well, I'm told what I do is counter apologetics. I'm not really sure exactly, but I debunk a lot of bad science, a lot of apologetics claims, a lot of anti-humanist nonsense, and do debates with Mark.
You just hit 1K subs, right?
Yeah, middle of the night on like Sunday or something.
Congratulations, Amber. That's awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. I love it.
All right.
Yeah, very cool. The things in review. How long did that take for you, Mark?
Probably like from when I started, like sort of committing to, because I was sort of putting videos up of my debates, because that's where I started from, without sort of any kind of set thing. I was just storing them on YouTube. Probably about 8 months or 10 months or so, I think. I'd only been doing it a year by the time I hit 1K.
Oh, I meant like how long for YouTube to do the review to actually turn on the channel features.
Not long at all, actually. I didn't even really notice, kind of thing. Like it was just on by the time I went in there. It must have been 24 hours or something. I didn't even notice the transition.
Neat.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking
just went on there.
of neat things, shall we get the show on the road?
Well, do you mean how long till they approved your membership stuff?
Yeah, that's sort of what I was getting at, because when I saw the update that I was over 1,000, because I'd already pre-attached the AdSense or whatever the heck it is, it just automatically went into review processing, and I'm like,
right,
okay, now what?
Yeah, it was it was just maybe 2 or 3 days, I think, a couple of days maybe at max. I think Yeah,
Okay.
not much longer than that. It was pretty fast, actually. I was really impressed.
Righty. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and start showing the video.
Yeah, let's
Right.
melt some creationist brains.
Yep. Is there a way for me to have it full screen but tab over to the stream? Or
What do you mean? Sorry.
like
You can. There should be a setting to do sort of in set kind of thing, like the pictures in set.
oh yeah, there it is.
It's just one of the thing mods.
Righty. Well, this is an hour and a half, so let's not make this a 9-hour stream. Hopefully.
Well, I've got to go in like probably about 40 minutes or so, so I'm not going to hang around for that long. I'm sorry. As I gave you a heads up about that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You get to
all
argue
good.
with Mormons, or a Mormon,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
I'm
you've got a
Mormon,
busy
yes.
day. You're doing this.
I've
and
got
then-
a very busy day, and then I'm doing an after show afterwards.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
saw.
my
Oh
day's
boy. Well, maybe
completely
we'll
full.
catch you for that.
Sure, if you'd like, no worries at all.
All you need to
got
do
my-
is just play the music from the South Park episode about Mormons.
Oh,
Dum, 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 dum,
you've
dum.
even got like the tags of the man. That'd be
Yeah.
Could be an
Look, this
adventure.
was an amazing rabbit hole. Anyway, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to hold you up with my stuff.
And we begin.
The Ice Age is a major mystery of Earth science. There are at
Since
least
when?
And, yeah,
it?
and we start off with a bang.
5
Is it
seconds in.
I saw the movie. I know what Ice Age is about.
Oh boy.
It was during a solar mania segment, as well as a slight variation with the orbit of the Earth. That's what caused the Ice Age.
Yep. And once it got started, the basically the amount of light the Earth reflected just sprung right up, and
Yeah.
that led to a cooling event, and it just snowballed, literally.
Yeah.
Just a question. Who is Michael J. Ord? And has he got any kind of
I have
Who is
no
this
idea.
person?
Let's.
Oh, he's got
Google
a
our new
master's
friend.
science degree in atmospheric science. I think, if this is the same person. Oh, yep, Creation Ministries. There he is.
That would be him.
So he
He's
should
got a
know it's not a
master's in
mystery.
science of atmospheric. Well, it's atmospheric science. It's not exactly, I suppose it is a field that is related. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
also works for Answers in Genesis and apparently has a series of children's books, including Life in the Great Ice Age.
Considering this is the Answers in Genesis movie series that we're watching at the moment.
Makes sense.
But a mystery. A slight change in the actual distance of orbit around the sun during a solar mania period, which then created a cascadance effects due to light being reflected by the ice, creating a mass cooling event.
One thing led to another, and it just got colder and colder, and it's happened. Have there been 4 or 5 ice ages?
There's been about 6.
6. Okay.
But 3 really big ones, and yeah.
The Ordovician mass extinction was caused by one, right?
Yes, I think it was as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see if he lists any theories we can address.
these 60 theories for the origin of the Ice Age. All of them have serious problems, but we can explain
Therefore,
it
God.
as the aftermath of the
Therefore,
flood,
God.
which shows that the flood was a real event and also verifies
really?
what we read in the Bible.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, how do
About
you
that.
get flood, then ice age?
I don't know. My brain snagged on the we can show the flood was a real event. I'm like, are you going to present anything backing that up, my friend? Or are we just going to just sail on past?
Now,
And
to be
it's in-
fair,
it's
this
in the
is
book.
the introduction. He might get into that further.
Yeah.
But
Ember.
that
it's
is
in
a
the
claim,
book.
sir.
And then there's
It's in
60
the book,
theories.
Ember.
Mm.
How
If
dare
only
you.
I'd read the book.
Read the
Yeah.
book.
I know there are about 4 theories running around for the exact reasoning behind the Ice Age, and all of them could be right. But 60?
It's a measure of degrees too. Like, we're pretty sure many of these had an effect. We're just not sure how much. It's like the tectonic thing from last night's after show, Mark.
Yeah. There's a number of it reminds me of Ray Comfort, how he says that there's like 30 definitions for goodness in the dictionary, and I looked it up, and maybe I'm using a different dictionary, but I found 3 definitions. So
Yeah, and there's multiple dictionaries though. Like,
yeah,
you've got to think
just,
like Ray Comfort here.
yeah, it feels like the creationist thing is to, when they want to make a number look bigger, they just stick a 0 on the end.
Could be.
Yeah.
So he would have gotten 10 different dictionaries and gone, okay, each of these have 3 different meanings for it.
Yes.
Even
No, the best one was Kent Hovind, who was using a definition of science, and Ken Ham uses the same definition of science. And I looked it up once, and it was like from a dictionary from the 1900s kind of thing. Like, that's where he got his definition from.
You say that like it's surprising.
Yeah,
It's
just
not really surprising, just funny. That's all.
It's surprising you read a dictionary.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, we can trust the Bible as God's word.
Welcome to the Flood Geology series,
Cool
the
footage.
programs where leading scientists take you exploring around the world to view the geologic evidence for the biblical flood and how its effects shaped the earth during
Oh boy,
and
they're
after
gonna
this
get into the Grand
worldwide
Canyon.
cataclysmic event only 4,300 years ago.
is it bad that I can actually name where
43.
every single one of those
Yes,
samples
good.
are from just looking at them?
No, shows you know rocks.
That's impressive.
They should have remembered the rocks.
They showed Antarctica, then they went to Australia, then they went to South Africa, then they went to America. It just, oh, I know that one. Oh, I know that one. It's just,
Yeah. You can lie about the flood, but the rocks were there. By the way, how's the volume? Is it loud, quiet?
It's okay.
Yeah,
I think I might
it
turn
sounds
down a
fine
little
from here.
because I was having a bit hard time hearing you guys. And go.
Ice Age was actually became
Actually, they say the Great Ice Age. Does that mean that they acknowledge there were other ice ages?
Well, there is the Little Ice Age in like the 1800s ish.
Is there any like time for more than a couple of ice ages though? Like, really, if you've only got 6,000 years, you're struggling to fit the 2. So
Oh yeah, and remember, we've got to get all of evolution from the kinds into the species we see today. You know, that microevolution. That's got to
that
happen in
hyper,
that post-flood time too.
Yeah.
So we're
Cool.
it's an action-packed period.
We got to get
Well,
cooking.
the flood wasn't even, like, according to them, it wasn't even that long ago. I mean, you're talking about 2345 to 2344 BC as the date of the flood kind of thing, which is just
Yeah, which part of the Egyptian dynasty that wasn't bothered at all was that?
right.
Another interesting thing from a biblical perspective is there's a record of the flood in the story of Noah, but there's not a single word about an ice age. So
You'd think that'd be kind of a big deal.
yeah, like the fact the Bible doesn't record it, I don't know. Maybe it means it's probably not even a biblical story. Just speculating.
but this also goes against other things that they say, like the mammoths were flash frozen standing up. So are you saying that they had adult mammoths on the ark that they released and then the ice age happened?
I mean,
Right.
it must have. As soon as
Well-
the water receded, it freaking day after tomorrowed.
I'd like to know how long after the flood this is supposed to be, because the Tower of Babel was supposed to be 101 years after the flood. So did they build the Tower of Babel while fending off mammoths, kind of thing? Like, what are we talking about here? Like,
Now,
I don't
you see,
know.
Mark, what happened was the mammoths were too eager to get off the ark, and they pushed the doors open so fast it froze them to death.
It's pretty fast.
Believed by geologists starting in 1840, it was an assault on uniformitarianism because there weren't glaciers around, continental glaciers covering much of Northern Europe and North America at the present time. So present processes can't account for the glaciation. So the Ice Age has been a major mystery ever since.
I don't feel like that's true.
Yeah, how is it an assault on uniformitarianism? Because uniformitarianism isn't everything has been the same as it is now. It's the processes that things go under are similar. Not
Well,
I
yeah.
think
So
to a
I think
creationist, it may mean that things are today exactly the same as they've always been.
no. I think they're sort of saying that it was just promoting catastrophism, which is the obviously that was replaced with uniformitarianism because sort of it didn't work. This whole idea that the flood did all of these geological changes just didn't work. So I think that they're sort of saying, hey, we've discovered stuff and it's an assault on your, dirty uniformitarianism.
And like, just if you want evidence of like the Ice Age happening or glaciers happening, like here, this is a topographic map of Iowa, my home state. You see that big blob here?
Tasty.
Yeah, that's from
That
the
is-
last major glaciation, and it's really well understood.
Don't be silly. It's God's thumbprint. Okay, he just went.
Yeah, that's pretty clearly a thumbprint. It just
Oh,
Yep.
God has a pretty fat thumb because this continues up into Minnesota.
Okay, well,
very
I'm not
long
gonna
and
ask
fat
personal
thumb.
questions. Yeah.
And his skin must be like sandpaper because it leaves very minute scratches all the way along every single rock formation there.
True. Glaciers leave, just for the audience, glaciers leave very distinctive tracks on the landscape. And on the rocks they push past. And we found those in many, many, many rock layers, which kind of weird that those might exist if there was a global flood that deposited all the layers.
Yeah, it's just weird that all those scratches would be facing in the same direction and the same way. And it's the way that it's eroded. And it's not just in North America. Let's go to Norway and
Yep.
where we can observe present day glaciers doing things and know how they work.
no, that's Iceland.
Yep. And
I was talking
maybe
about
just
the fjords.
Fjords.
Tasty fjords.
like
Makes
just
me
giving an
hungry
idea
for
of like
herrings.
these are the marks we're talking about. They're called glacial striations. They are very striking and very easy to recognize.
Mm.
And they're formed by, well, like this image here suggests, the glacier just slides over, it carries rocks along the bottom, and they just scratch all along the glacier's belly.
What if we put a glacier bedrock scratch field into a record player?
I mean, maybe play it like
Just
a washboard.
Yes, plays Norwegian heavy metal, really.
I mean, if Amazing Grace came out, that would certainly be something interesting.
Well, it's the latest Norwegian rock band.
I don't know. Disconnect geology joke.
Probably.
You going to deliver the punchline, or are we just going to leave that hanging a bit?
No,
more?
it's a rock band. That is the punchline.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm too early for this.
A special issue of U.S. News and World Report in August 1997 came out, the whole issue dedicated to the 18 greatest mysteries of science. Some of these mysteries were mysteries of their own making because they believe in evolution and can't explain a number of things. One of the
Sure,
18
buddy.
is what causes ice ages. So they really don't know.
You said at
Okay.
the start, like you explained why it happened
Wow.
at the start.
Even if true, that was in 1997.
Yeah.
What? Let me check. What year was this published?
Yeah, I was just going to say, how old is
2021.
this movie?
So it had been 24 years. You think we might have learned something in 24 years?
No.
And I can't find that article that he was talking about.
To be fair, it might have been a physical publication.
But they usually leave a footprint.
True. Maybe it's in some old library somewhere.
An ice age is essentially defined as a great increase in ice and snow. What do you
I mean,
Is
yes,
that what it's defined as?
but also no.
It's normally it's normally measured in temperatures that are experienced, not the actual ice itself.
Right.
Yeah. Is there a definitive worldwide average it has to dip below, or just a large amount of the world below a certain temperature for most of the year?
Just areas of the world below a certain certain temperature for most of the year.
Okay.
need for an ice age? First of all, you need a lot cooler summers and a lot more moisture, and it has to persist year after year.
That is
right now, 10% of the land surface of the Earth is covered by ice, mainly the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets. But during the Ice Age, 30% of the continental areas were covered. Practically all of Canada, the northern United States, the mountains of the western United States, northern Europe,
Okay, so United States
the Andes
twice.
Mountains and the mountains of Tasmania. Well, how do we know that ice covered these areas? The way to find out is you
it's
go
a
to
mystery.
Tasmania was never affected by an ice age. Well, sorry, the only effect that Tasmania ever had, it was actually connected to Australia, but it never actually had the layer of ice that he's talking about. We don't have that glaciation events on Tasmania.
Gotta admit, I don't know a ton about Tasmania.
I've heard they have devils.
Is he confusing it with parts of New Zealand, maybe? New Zealand's
possibly,
right?
Yeah, the southern island of New Zealand does have glaciation events, but the Tasmania is the only island in the world by its shape will bring a smile to your face.
Glaciated areas today, and practically all the glaciers in the world are receding, and so when they recede, you find out what they do.
I mean, that is sadly true.
Well, here we are in the beautiful Cascade Mountains of Oregon. We're at below Elliott Glacier on the north slope of Mount Hood. Now, Elliott Glacier was once much larger and actually part of the local mountain glaciers on the stratovolcanoes in the Cascades. At the end of the Ice Age, the glaciers melted, and during the recent 130 years, the glaciers have mostly melted around the Earth, revealing what a glacier produces. It produces moraines, like this lateral moraine we're on right now, and down in the middle there's what's called ground moraines. And generally out in this area, there would be end moraines, but the end moraine is broken all the way through, probably from glacial meltwater that has destroyed it. An end moraine is where debris is piled up in front of a glacier, the terminal part of the glacier or the end of the glacier. That's why they call it a terminal or end moraine. And also it piles up along the edge. Those are called lateral moraines. Also debris piles up where it melts and it kind of forms a rolling surface with erratic boulders on the top. That's called ground moraine.
Well, I mean, he's being right for a lot of this. Like, he's just describing the features of a glacier.
Yeah, I think he's...
Cool.
trying to, I don't know if he's padding runtime or trying to build credibility. Like, here
I
are
think
some
it's built
facts I know
credibility.
everyone would agree with, you know?
Well,
Look,
maybe
he
a bit
was
of
a
both, but
he was a
it's also
research
educated.
meteorologist. He's not a geologist, so he's a research meteorologist. He's basically a weatherman with a degree. Like, seriously. No, I'm being unfair. Like, meteorologists do really good work, but he's not a geologist at all.
But this is supposedly an educational film, so I guess he's trying to help educate the audience a little.
Yeah, but come on, get your facts right.
Well, these facts are actually right, but
This little bit of facts
Get
are
the
right,
facts that
therefore
matter
all the
for the
facts
argument,
must be
right?
right.
And that's what we see around glaciated areas today. We can go to areas like this, which were previous glaciated, to see what glaciers produce in the rocks. One of them is this lateral moraine. A second one is it scratches the bedrock as
That's not
boulders
bedrock.
and all kinds of other debris, cobbles, gravel.
Well, it leaves scratches on bedrock and just the rocks trapped within it.
Oh, sure, it'll scratch the shit out of everything, but he
Yeah.
said bedrock and then showed, like, more deposits. And I'm like, my dude.
Well, that's
come on,
not
man.
his fault. You know, that's the editor's fault.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ends up in the bottom of the glacier. It scrapes across the bedrock, forming striations and scratches. And then the rocks at the bottom of the glacier also get scratched. And a lot of times you see these scratched boulders
That
left
is a
in the
weird
moraines, like this
highlight.
one that I'm
Okay.
standing on right here has scratches going like this. And it's been smoothed off at the top, called faceted. You look for these features, moraines, scratched bedrock, and scratched boulders in other areas of the earth. And this is how they concluded that there was an ice age not that long ago.
On top of all,
Here we are in the
glacial
Sun River
footprints.
Canyon in the Northern Rockies, along the first cliff that you see. It's only about 800 foot, and the glacier formed in the Northern Rockies and moved out onto
So
the high
question.
plains about 15 miles.
Question.
Yeah.
How long would it take for you to get striation like that, those scratches?
I mean, as long as there are rocks in the bed, they happen instantaneously as it goes over. Like it like if you were to take a coin and scratch the table in front of you, it's the exact same process. Just with
Yeah.
hundreds of tons of ice.
you could do it in 1 or 2 years, just depending on how fast the glaciation movement is.
Yeah.
Well, it's a matter of hardnesses, isn't it? Like, the harder rock is going to scratch the less hard rock. So if the boulder's harder, it'll scratch the bedrock. But if the bedrock is harder, then,
That makes
I
sense.
mean, it'll take some damage, but it wouldn't leave as much of a scratch. So there may be a time component in that. In order to the ice itself may or may not scratch the bedrock, but it's got to work its way up by breaking off pieces of rock and then using those to break off harder pieces of rock and using those to break off harder pieces of rock until it can eventually etch the granite. Or am I just...
That is true.
Okay.
You're right. It depends on the area, though, because glaciers continuously pick up rocks as they move about. So they'll
that's
more often
true.
than not have
There's a lot
local
of free
mixed
rocks.
in.
Yeah, especially in your mountains, there's always free rocks. Just that natural weathering and mass wasting.
Yeah, they don't even charge you for them. You can pick them up, take them home. It's crazy. Just free. Just completely free.
I know. It's like the Earth is anti-capitalist or something. Crazy commie mountains.
Communist, yeah, communist geology.
I mean, just if anyone out there is curious, take a glaciology class. They are fascinating. Glaciers are way more complicated than you think, but it's really cool.
It all just moves rather slowly.
Yeah.
Miles and moved through here. Here we found some weak striations or scratches.
Just making sure, yeah, those look like scratches. I was trying to see if they were bed forms or scratches.
I've seen better ones on this ridge, especially since the cracking of the rock is semi-parallel. They're glacial striations where when the rocks collected at the bottom of the glacier move, and as they move, they scratch the bedrock. and the rocks get scratched. In terminal moraines and even ground moraines, you commonly find scratched and grooved boulders that were carried on the bottom of the ice and scratched against bedrock. This appears to be one. It's limestone from the Rocky Mountain front on this terminal moraine we're on. It looks like it could see scratches in it right like this.
Okay, I'm pretty sure he's not the one that did it, but I do kind of like the rock hammer for scale, because that is actually something geologists do, because we all use them.
Okay,
And
I'm
they're all
wondering
the
why the
same
heck it was
size.
there. I'm like, is he going to take a sample right now? Like, what's it doing there?
It's useful for scale. It can help you climb. It's useful for a ton of things.
It doesn't make a very good back scratcher, though. Just don't try it.
Maybe use it as cheese grater.
Mm-hmm. Meat tenderizer.
That's
Meat
more what
tenderizer.
it
There you
does.
go. Yeah. Mincing
This,
machine kind of
as it
thing.
was going along the bedrock, it flattened this. It's called a facet. So you find faceted and striated
That is a
or
well.
grooved
Just a second.
rocks,
I
commonly
love how
inter-
they're focusing on the rock hammer, right? Like he's got to make his credentials known. Look how much they focus on that rock hammer. Like I'm a serious geologist with my hammer. You know, I know what I'm doing.
That hammer has to belong to someone who uses it. That is a well-loved hammer.
faceted and
Cool.
striated or grooved rocks, commonly in terminal moraines. It's evidence of glaciation.
And they also just drop out
Or
of the bed,
very
right?
angry kitties.
Now, around the world where it's been glaciated, especially mountainous areas, you have some very distinctive moraines. In fact, they come out from a mountain valley. You find these around the eastern Sierra Mountains, around the Wind River Mountains. The best example that I've ever seen is the northeastern Wallowa Mountains, where you have a horseshoe-shaped moraine,
That's a nice
an end
view.
moraine about 100 feet tall, and lateral moraine 600 feet tall, very sharp looking, that come out, and inside, Lake Wallowa has filled it up.
Very well preserved.
Right here, we're standing on a
Yeah.
terminal moraine from the ice sheet over the northern Rockies that came out of the Sun River Canyon right over there. But right in the middle here, it broke through. A lot of times moraines pond lakes, and this lake probably broke through right in here, and this is a Willow Creek. And that they found that a great place to put a reservoir where it broke through, and so it's Willow Creek Reservoir near Augusta, Montana. We're
You know, it's funny. Glaciers can also just randomly create hills in an area. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my entire area where I live. There's no actual ground. It's all glacial deposits, just lumpy.
Same here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, as weird as it can sound, there can be waterfalls inside of a glacier, and they'll
Ooh.
just deposit stuff on the ground because they'll
Well-
bore a hole through the glacier.
I'm in Western
I know they're
Australia.
not
It's
called
not
waterfalls,
known for
but-
its glaciers, to be honest with you. It's not known for glaciers.
Yeah. What is it? Yeah, there's one in my state called Pilot Mound. You could almost mistake it for a small. I think it's Pilot Mound. Maybe. Anyway, it's big enough you can mistake it for a small mountain. It's hundreds of feet tall.
in the lower canyon of the Clarks Fork River before it enters the Bighorn Basin. The Clarks Fork River runs between the Absaroka Mountains on the south and the
Bighorn
Beartooth
Basin,
Mountains on
that's
the
where I
north,
did all my field work.
which were glaciated during the Ice Age, right after the flood.
Some of
Probably
it.
a channel of the ice came down the Clark Fork Valley and moved to this position right here where we see a terminal moraine. And then as the ice retreated, it formed a lake in here. And the lake overtopped the moraine over on the south part there and sent a flood down the valley where you could see all kinds of big, huge rounded rocks from that outwash flood.
So he just admitted he knows, or they know how to recognize a flood deposit.
Uh-oh.
This is the thing that sort of gets me. It's like, just because you can spot a flood happened in the past doesn't mean it was a global flood. So they come out with sort of, oh, this shows there was a flood, and it's like, okay, and that's cool. No one's saying floods don't happen, but it's just the whole idea of a global flood is the problem.
Yeah, exactly. If there was a global flood, we would see signs of it everywhere, but we just don't.
And I've just been going through the 1997 collections of all their world reports, and not once have they mentioned anything about the scientific mysteries.
Oh dear.
Yeah, the Great Science Mysteries is from the U.S. News and World Report, August 18th to 25, 1997, volume 123, issue 7. And it doesn't mention anything about glaciation.
Well.
Well. The plot
Oopsies.
thickens.
Yeah, I'm reading some of the article now. It was more about dinosaurs, alien life, sex, and that sort of thing. There was nothing in it about ice ages.
Yes, dinosaurs, alien life, and sex, the things that have captivated mankind for ages.
That's actually a fairly accurate summary.
Yeah, I guess. I will say a lot of cool mountain shots in here. That's something.
An erratic boulder is a boulder that does not outcrop in the local area. In fact, this type of rock is called argillite, a slightly metamorphic shale. You can see the platy shale look of it, but it's been heated up and hardened some. This type of rock doesn't even outcrop in Oregon. It got here by the Lake Missoula flood. Glacial Lake Missoula filled up to 2,000 feet deep in the valleys of western Montana by a finger of the ice sheet, the Cordilleran ice sheet in northern Idaho, 2,500 feet deep. And it broke through that and came through eastern Washington. It came through the Columbia Gorge 1,000 feet deep. And then it spread out in the Portland, Vancouver area and moved over Portland about 400 feet deep. And it backwashed up this Willamette Valley here about 500 feet above sea level, or about 400 feet deep. And it brought all these erratic boulders, and the Willamette Valley has hundreds of erratic boulders, of which this one is the largest one. Right now it weighs 90 tons. That's how this erratic boulder got here during the Lake Missoula flood, which indicates that there was an ice age that formed the lake and caused the Lake Missoula flood and deposited this erratic here.
It is weird. They have a whole other movie on the Missoula flood.
But when was that? Tell us when it was, because it certainly wasn't like 2,000 years ago.
Yeah. We all believe that the Lake Missoula flood happened. That's,
yes.
That's a thing.
But what, it was like over 10,000 years ago? It was like, even a conservative estimate, that was before the world was created, in their opinion. So,
there is a creationist organization that allows for the actual Ice Age, isn't there?
Biologos.
Like they'll go up to like 18,000 years.
Oh, will they? Okay. Yeah, but isn't this
I know
like
there's
Creation
one out
Ministry
there.
or something? Is this Creation Ministry?
I don't know which one. I just remember hearing about them one time.
No. This who does this one? Who's doing this one?
Oh,
AIG.
Yeah. See, that's Creation Ministry, and that's Ken Ham's thing. So he definitely doesn't think that it's like,
Okay.
Well, here we are at Turner, Montana, a couple miles from the Canadian border in north central Montana.
We're just going to go around for 10
on the
minutes.
highest terrain in the area called the Flaxville Planation
We're on the
Surface.
geology tour.
And here we have a large erratic boulder from the
I
Ice
like
Age.
rocks, but it's not really
Now this erratic
supporting
boulder is nice, kind of like a banded granite. This type of rock does not outcrop anywhere close to here, hundreds of miles. The nearest source is the Canadian Shield to the north, about 400 miles. You'll find them in farmers' fields piled up by the hundreds. This erratic was from the continental ice sheet, whose boundary was to the south, about 40 miles from here. The continental ice sheet extended over central and eastern Canada and the northeast and north central United States. The question is, how did they all get here? Did the ice move them from the Canadian Shield slowly? There's a slight problem with that, because when you look at how thick the ice was in this area, it was actually very thin. The Flaxville Plateau further to the east was sticking above the ice, and to the north we have the Wood Mountain Plateau in Saskatchewan that was unglaciated, so it's called a driftless area. Well, the boundary of the ice was 40 miles to the south, and we know to the west it was thin too, because the western end of the Cypress Hills stuck up 300 feet above the ice. So the ice was only about 700 feet thick, about 100 miles north into Canada. So essentially the surface of it was thin and flat. For a glacier to move, it moves by its surface slope slowly. And if it slopes down to the south, it should move from the north to the south. But if there isn't any slope, there's a problem of it moving. Then how did this erratic get here if the ice was too thin to move it?
Okay, I have an explanation for this. He might be about to give it, so we'll see how that.
You have ice, it's got to melt. And during the melting phase of the ice, you have all kinds of glacial rivers and glacial lakes, and you have icebergs with rocks in it. So I postulate that this and all the tens of thousands of erratic boulders like this came down in icebergs and by water action as the ice was melting. In fact, you can see something of the action of water. This is what's called sub-rounded. Looks like water's been affecting this. And most of the erratics I've seen are either rounded or sub-rounded. Some of them they're huge and they're small.
Okay. First, glaciers round out rocks as well.
Mm-hmm.
They do it very well and even faster than most water does it. Second, thin ice sheets can move very quickly. Most of it is
because there's less resistance in the flow, because there's less matter to move.
Well, yes and no. Thick ice can move very quickly because while we classify ice as a solid, it does flow.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a ton of it, you have a ton of force pressing down, and then it pushes it. So that'll make it move fast. But near the end of a glacier, where it's starting to melt a ton, you have a lot more water in the ice, and that makes it much easier to flow, especially when there's more ice behind it. That was the case with the glacier that was right above my head about 14,000 years ago. It was only about 100 meters thick.
And I thought he was trying to actually support his side and not, oh, this is what we know. Yes.
Yeah, like.
But I don't understand how you can look at all of this and sort of understand the forces involved and, you know, what's involved and go, well, yeah, that happened within 10,000 years or 18,000 years. I don't get that.
Yeah, like, is he just trying to say there wasn't enough time for this to move by glacial action? Is that all he's trying to say?
Well, maybe it was the flood that did it.
Either way, untrue.
So I think the glacial fluvial, as they call it, the action of big, huge floods from the ice and lakes at the edge of the ice sheet moved these erratics from where they eroded from the bedrock to where we see them here today.
Okay, a fluvial system is a river or stream, something like that. Do we call floods fluvial systems, Beamsy?
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them fluvial.
That was just a rather weird use of terms.
Almost like he's not a geologist. Okay, some more cool rock shots.
2 shots of the Missoula region and one of the
Besides
Grand Canyon.
the mystery of the ice.
Yeah, and then a nice sunset.
Ice Age, which they still can't explain. There's a lot of subsidiary mysteries or secondary
claim,
mysteries
again.
associated with that. First of all, in Alaska and Siberia, only the mountains were glaciated, not the lowlands. Why would that?
Okay, that's just not true. That's just not true. Alaska and Siberia were covered in glaciers all over.
I'm like, what's he trying to do here?
That happened. In fact, when they run their computer models, some models glaciate both Alaska and Siberia, both mountains and lowlands. So why? They don't really know. A second one is that when we examine the animals and plants and even invertebrates during the Ice Age, we find that it's a mix.
I'm sorry, invertebrates? He's had some weird pronunciation, but that's egregious.
Mix of animals that love the warmth and animals that love the cold. This is really odd because when they run their Ice Age models, their Ice Age is very cold. The post-flood Ice Age model was quite different.
No, they don't. That's the thing. You're compressing everything into, a few thousand years. So you're saying, hey, they find these animals which love the heat and blood. Yeah, because if you stretch it out over millions of years, like they're not all in the Ice Age.
Like, we're dealing with the Genesis version of the fossil record. The geological column is all from last Tuesday.
Everything died in the flood kind of thing, or not everything, but all of these fossils come from the great catastrophe of the flood kind of thing. So it's weird.
We know what. I'm just going to go with North America because it's what I'm most familiar with. We know what North America looked like during the Ice Age. We have a very good idea.
Yeah.
And sure, like down near Florida, maybe you'd get some warmer bodied animals. Sure. But he is sort of right in that there was a mix of warm and cold loving animals because a lot of the cold loving animals were coming south from Asia, from northern North America to these warmer regions, like often for food as the glaciers advanced. There was a pressure for them to move farther south.
Just on a side note, my debate's been cancelled, so I'm going to be hanging around.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I'm very upset about it, to be honest with you. But apparently there's fires up in Nova Scotia, which is affecting the moderator. So, I'm like, stay safe.
Yeah, that's
so.
Didn't they have to cancel a debate either last night or the night before too?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't. And I want to reschedule the after show, and they're not coming back to me.
Well, I finally found all their scientific mysteries. The 18 scientific mysteries. How old is the universe? Is there life on other planets? Were dinosaurs cold-blooded?
If you have a link, Beamsy, I can show it on screen.
It's not a very good one. It's...
Oh, okay. Sorry, go ahead then.
But that's where I'm getting it from. What is sleep for? Why should males exist? Why do we age? What causes ice ages? Blame it on the Himalayas or evolution of grasses. Can computers be conscious? How does anesthesia work? How many people were before Columbus? What is a memory? How do genes switch on? How many species are there? How strange is the universe? And everyday mysteries, which consist of barking dogs, hot peppers, violin, noises, and hiccups.
It's a very
hot peppers are kind of interesting, though.
Range of
like
things.
the capsate and everything that's going on in hot peppers is actually quite fascinating. I won't lie.
Yeah, so, I feel like most of those are just curiosities or things that they were close to understanding at the time, but didn't yet. But
Yeah,
we
like,
know now.
could there be alien life versus how do genes activate? The level of specificity is just all over the place.
Why do males?
For
Which-
real.
I think I gave a decent explanation in an after show Amy hosted. But like basically, you can have different members of a population be better at different things, and they can pass that on to their descendants. And like creating sperm and eggs is very costly, metabolically speaking. So it's better for an organism to specialize in one than try and produce both. So hermaphrodism is commonly selected against.
The idea of that just brings back the trauma I had dealing with standing for truths of genetic entropy.
Ugh.
No, that whole idea that just makes me fume. That entire idea is just such bullshit.
Look how fast these chromosomes split and mutate. Yes, but do you realize that he's taking the 3 or 4 mutations from exclusively the Y chromosome? Because that's
Which
the
is
only.
that's
the
very
only-
volatile.
Yeah, it mutates an average of 4 to 5 per generation.
Yes.
And that's what he takes that all the chromosomes do.
Mhm.
But all other chromosomes have 1 mutation every 3 to 4 generations on average.
And that's why we use mitochondrial DNA instead of Y chromosome, because that is so volatile compared to the rest of them. It's ridiculous that that's what they're doing. Like, it actually makes me mad.
But he's saying that all chromosomes are that mutative. But
I know.
no.
Well, we see this rate in one thing, so it must be constant across all the things. And don't tell me that we've checked the rate on all the things, because that's catastrophic to my argument.
Well, I
And
mean,
then they'll say we haven't tested the rate and all the things, but
somebody submitted a comment that was really good, and it's like, would they reach these conclusions if they didn't have the presupposition of the Bible being correct? Would, like, for the instance, the flood, when I was doing sort of scientific evidence for the flood, would they have reached that conclusion without first believing the flood had to happen? And I thought that was an interesting comment. It was a really good comment.
Yeah, you see it come up in the various debates from time to time, the different religious questions and discussions, and inevitably, at some point, some people are going to get way too far down a rabbit hole of the presuppositions, and somebody will be like, hey, could you possibly have ever gotten there? Would you ever have thought this was a thing without starting with your conclusion?
And the best evidence for that is to bring up Ken Ham's, okay, everyone, let's put on our God glasses.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Speaking of Ken Ham, I learned recently of a little model they have in the Creation Museum, and it makes me so angry. They took one of the most adorable, cutest ancient creatures of all time and put it in their museum, and it is an outrage.
Oh, the dromaeosaur without feathers.
Not that, no. Here. It is a land-dwelling, plant-eating, miniature crocodilian.
Oh,
And it is the sweetest, most precious little thing.
I want
Look,
one.
I've been watching videos on red pandas. I think that's the cutest animal I've ever seen, bar none. I think I've changed my mind on the cutest animal.
Okay, maybe, but these are so adorable, and I want one.
They're definitely the most adorable reptilian I've ever seen.
Most adorable crocodile.
Yeah, they're at the Ark Encounter now, and I hate it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should probably get back to the movie, I guess.
Oh, Amber, we should review the Bill Nye and Ken Ham debate at some point. because that was a famous
Oh, that
one.
old
I remember
classic.
watching that.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely classic, and it's been coming up in conversations recently. A few people have mentioned it, so yeah, it's a good idea to add to our list.
Yeah, sounds great.
Very cold temperatures, it'd be very hard for warm climate animals to live. One of the most outrageous examples of this,
Outrageous.
it's called disharmonious associations, is in Northwest Europe. You had a lot of locations where hippopotamuses lived during the Ice Age. And when they died with cold tolerant animals. Like in southern England, there's 100 locations where you find hippo fossils with woolly mammoths, reindeer, and muskox.
I have never heard of this, and now I'm curious. Like, I don't doubt that there could have been hippos in Europe, but early to middle place. Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, hippos can go anywhere they want. Those things are just...
That's true, and we know that they did come in a woolly variety. However,
Did they?
apparently those particular
Rhinos
hippos,
did. I don't know about
yes.
hippos.
Yeah, I'm not sure about
those
hippos.
particular hippos. According to the internets, are about 1 million years old.
Which would have been before, well, at least before the... Yeah, that would have been before the Ice Age.
Were there woolly hippos?
I don't...
I mean, they're aquatic, aren't they? I mean, that seems really weird.
Yeah, I was thinking of rhinos.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Sorry.
Those
How would
old
you get
creatures. They have a similar morphology, except for the horn, and the nose shape, and
Also, at the same time, though, like, I feel like hippos as an animal could exist in a more cool environment. Like, they're big and they're fatty.
And yeah, fatty. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
They're
they
very
kind
well
of have a
insulated.
seal thing going on.
All they need is water, and they're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, according to this, the hippopotamus adequus were smaller, but actually far better adapted than the current modern hippos.
For cold environments?
No, just all round.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. And
The Atticus
modern
was
hippos
long-
are already...
Sorry?
Just modern hippos are really freaking well adapted, so that's saying something.
Yeah.
An average weight of 3,200 kilos. The Aphatus was larger than modern common hippos. The hippo...
Oh, that's horrifying.
Amphius, but smaller than the Gorpus. I don't know what that is. The skull is more slender and elongated with a shorter neocranian. So it was dumber. Has been more suggested to have been more aquatically adapted, so it would actually be more...
More aquatic than a hippo. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
So larger and lives in the water more often than modern hippos.
I guess a whale hippo.
I was just it's fascinating how frequently mammals are like moving back into the ocean. They're like, you know what, land is awful. I'm gonna live in the sea now.
Well, mammals are really good at swimming and a lot of other things. Like even most land adapted animals are at least competent swimmers. That's not something you can say for all groups.
And you've got to take into account that endothermic reactions within the body is a massive evolutionary advantage.
Yep. Subcutaneous fat is also pretty common, which good insulator. Genes for hair are easy to turn off and on for drag.
And I guess sort of the water it's affected less by catastrophes than land is, I guess.
Depends on what you are. If you're a reptile, yes. If you're a fish, no. And if you're an amphibian, it gets 2% more acidic and you just die. Amphibians are very sensitive.
Yeah, but the biggest advantage is the difference between an endothermic and an exothermic creature. An endothermic just got so much more advantages and only one big disadvantage.
Well, the big thing is just you have a much higher metabolism, and you have to worry about heat loss because it'll drive up your metabolism if you lose heat.
Mhm.
Which is why all mammals that live in cold areas have really thick fur and or really thick fat for insulation. Like, they need it, otherwise they just burn through all their energy in hours.
And get hippos up into northwest Europe. This can be solved by the post-flood ice age.
How?
Another mystery is the extinctions.
He's not going to explain how. Okay.
No,
At the end of the ice
It's fine.
age, the ones over 100 pounds and the larger birds mostly went extinct. In North America, 70% of these animals went extinct. And we're talking about sloths, saber-toothed tigers, woolly mammoths, the American mastodon, dire wolf. There's a huge number of them. It's the same thing in Europe and Asia, about 70%.
Okay, we just brought up that mammals are warm-blooded.
Mhm.
Many of these are also big. You have a big, warm-blooded thing. That's going to need a lot of food. So if the climate changes abruptly and they lose access to a lot of food, they're going to die really easily.
Yeah,
And-
that's what happened to the last lot of megafauna.
And also remember that the extinction of a lot of these species just coincidentally happens to coincide when humans migrated into their area.
It does coincide, but I think the current consensus is humans most likely didn't drive most of them to extinction.
It didn't help.
It didn't help, but it wasn't a major factor.
Well, I mean, I'm looking up this hippos. Like, they're actually found in the UK by the University of Leicester. I mean, it basically says they were like from 1 million years ago, kind of thing. So it's interesting that they sort of accept the sort of scientific evidence where they want, and then just discard the rest of it, kind of thing.
Well, with their quote-unquote model, they could just smush all of prehistory into a single time unit.
Yeah.
So for all their
It
concerns,
was a
they
single
lived
generation because we had to get ready for the Tower of Babel and on schedule.
Everything had multi-septuplets every time they had kids. That's easy to explain it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, just double checking really quick. Yeah, looks like the last ice age started a bit under. Oh, what? No, 5 million. Looks like it really started hitting its stride about 1 million years ago.
Right.
But that's when it started getting into a really set cycle of slow rise and then abrupt just plunge. And that cycle is just really hard to adapt to.
In Australia, 90%, which brings up an interesting question. Only the very southeast tops of the mountains were glaciated during the ice age there. So why would 90% go extinct in Australia? In South America, it's about 60 to 70% went extinct. Africa is an anomaly. Hardly any animals went extinct. So there's lots of these mysteries, and it's only after the last. Why did they go extinct? Supposedly the ice sheets were...
Now,
It's
that bit
almost like
is
when the
true,
climate
and it's
changes, the creatures dependent on climate have issues.
that bit
Well-
is true, and it is pretty interesting that most of Australia's megafauna, or not Australia, Africa's megafauna survived.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, being really close to the equator, the climate change wouldn't really change that much. Like, a couple of degrees at the poles is the difference between there being no ice cap and planetary ice sheets. But around the equator, it's, the monsoon season comes 2 weeks earlier, maybe. But the
But
average
see,
temperature, meh.
But see, the thing is that we're not taking it as, it all happened in one or two events kind of thing. We can say, hey, the megafauna were sort of outcompeted, or these other things happened. There were other evolutionary pressures that caused them to go extinct. But he can't say that, right? So that's not within his frame of reference. So he's got to go, why did they all go extinct on this continent and yet survive on this one, kind of thing? And it's like, well, that was the pressures that they were under. And it didn't all happen at once from one event, right? Like, this isn't... Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird, this whole idea of, oh, we've got to explain everything in this one ice age.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
It's really hard to balance the cognitive dissonance that they have to be using, because it keeps falling out of my head that he can't use that data because it conflicts with his preconception.
Yeah,
so
for the record, here's a lovely graph of the average global temperature change over the last few billion years.
Can you see the 5 major ice ages?
Yeah, look how absolutely nuts that is. Like, we're talking a plunge of of up to 8 degrees Celsius in a couple hundred years. That is absolutely insane.
yeah, some of them are close to 10 degrees.
Yeah. That's what all these animals had to try and live with.
Well, and the Australian megafauna didn't die off until 50,000 years ago. It wasn't actually linked to an ice age. It was linked to, well, what Hillhugger just brought up.
I think most of the Australian megafauna is attributed to humans.
Yeah, that was done to humans because of what they did to the environment. They started doing burn-offs, and that's what killed the Australians. Natives actually hunt with fire. They start large fire patches, and so Australia's the wildlife and the plant life has actually evolved to deal with lots of fire.
And I guess I should have specified, it's not for certain if humans contributed much to extinction in North America, but I do know that there is a hypothesis that the reason why we have so much African megafauna surviving is because they co-evolved with humans. And so we're just naturally better adapted for surviving alongside humans.
So basically, humans are assholes, is essentially what you're saying. Like,
yeah, just a little.
It's true. So, Hillhugger, I'm glad you're back, because I missed the opportunity to say earlier, you already have a doctor appointment.
God damn it.
Oh, I've also got a map of hippo movements, which might be interesting.
That might be.
Yeah, I started going down that rabbit hole. It was interesting.
Yeah. So this is like
cool.
Ooh.
So Westbury Cave was the one that I was
Alps.
looking at.
That's fantastic.
Hey, look, if elephants can do it.
I know. I was just thinking, like, maybe that's what gave Hannibal the idea.
My question is, like, were they following like major rivers? Because that makes sense.
Yeah, sure does.
Oh.
Well, I could see the 14 through to 23 is along the Rhine.
Oh man, I feel sorry for the people in Britain though. You're dealing with shrews and badgers and stuff, and then a hippo comes your way.
All of a sudden, the hippos
that's
invade.
Suck, right? Yeah, the invasion of the hippos.
Well, there wouldn't have been humans up there at that time, or at least not Homo sapiens.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Did Homo erectus radiate into? Well, yeah, because Neanderthals evolved.
I was going to say the Neanderthals definitely did, but I'm not sure about Homo erectus. However, the geography was a little bit different at the time. Like the English Channel didn't open up until something like 600 years ago. So it was all just land at that time, and they could have just... I mean, not that water would stop hippos.
Okay, so they might not have coexisted with hippos. At least according to Google, the first sign of Homo erectus in England is 500,000 years ago.
So they followed the hippos, is what you're saying.
The modern hippo, and here's what they're mucking up. The modern hippo is hippopotamus amphibius, right? That's the modern hippo.
Yeah.
But these are actually hippopotamus Antiquus, which means like the early Pleistocene hippo and middle Pleistocene hippo.
And they're
Oh.
bigger and elongated skull, and they were more
Yeah,
aquatic.
yeah. So that's what Beamsy was talking about. But they're kind of talking about like they're all just one thing, right? Because they've got their kind of kinds going on.
Yeah, a hippo's a hippo, an elephant's an elephant.
Right.
An elephant's a proboscidean, actually.
Or is it a mammoth theme?
No, they actually put it all under proboscideans.
Well, yeah, you're right. I was trying to make a joke.
But they actually try and put all of those things under proboscideans, so that's one less of their kinds for an arc.
Shout out to Erica Guts Gibbon. Recently did a video explaining the whole proboscidean thing.
Yeah,
Like,
I watched.
You cannot fit
That's
them
good stuff.
in the. You cannot fit all the species we have
Yeah,
in the time from the arc to now.
What do we have? Around 200 odd species of different proboscideans?
Yep. And at least the average modern elephant, I think, takes 15 years to reach maturity. And they need 2 full years to gestate the baby.
Yeah,
And
that's
every
that's a big
single
time issue.
baby of every generation would have to be a different species in order to fill them all out.
Yeah, it again, just more dogpiling information just goes. This just proves long time more and more and more. Do you just want to get buried under all this?
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
Anyway, supposedly the ice sheets were melting.
Melting, and more land was showing up, and it was supposedly getting warmer. Why would
Supposedly?
they all go extinct at the end?
Oh, hey, that's I forget the name, but that is a very beautiful mammoth calf.
It's it's one of the Siberian ones. I can't, but I don't know which one it is.
Can't remember the name, but
there's a few of them.
gorgeous specimen. Gorgeous.
Well, mammoths were around like pretty recently. I think it was like 300 BC or something like that. Like it just
there were some on a couple islands.
islands off of Canada or
California
something.
California and Siberia, Russia, Siberia, whatever. There were a few, but the vast majority of them died out far sooner. Okay, I'm pretty sure we were in the Bighorn Basin there for a second.
Another mystery is that we had what I call wet deserts. There are dry areas now, or semi-arid areas that during the Ice Age were much wetter. And they had huge lakes, big rivers. For instance, in the southwest United States.
I'm sorry. I have no geological knowledge, so I feel like I've got to add something. So I'm just making jokes.
No,
all
you're
the time.
fine.
So
You're fine.
I feel really out of my depth with you guys. So yeah.
No, you're fine. You're bringing up some good points and interesting questions. You're fine, man.
About 36 lakes during the Ice Age. Some of them were large, whereas now we got little tiny shriveled up lakes in the Great Basin and Death Valley.
Congrats.
For instance, where Great Salt Lake exists right now, Great Salt Lake is an average of 12 feet deep. But where it exists now, we had a lake 800 feet deep called Lake Bonneville that was 8 times the area of Great Salt Lake. And we also had Lake Russell in the Owens Valley. And we had Lake Manly, which is about 600 feet deep in Death Valley. We had a big lake, 600 feet deep. How did these lakes get there?
Rain,
Low
groundwater, and streams.
How is Lake Eyre a lake?
Like
It's the largest. It's the largest inland sea, and it's in the middle of Australia.
Like I'm sorry.
Isn't that underground?
No. What do you mean underground? Lake Eyre is a massive salt plain that is about 20 meters below sea level. So all the water,
Neat. But yeah, like in where LA or San Diego are now, Like people find mammoths, whales, dugongs, big cats. Like the climate has changed. And he's just saying, we find evidence of this thing, how it happened.
The uniformitarians have lots of trouble getting even decent precip during the Ice Age to get an ice sheet.
What did he just say?
I don't know. Even
Something about a priest to get an ice sheet?
Lots of trouble
Precept,
getting
maybe?
even decent precip during the Ice Age.
It's even
Precip?
notable on the
Is he talking about
caption.
precipitation?
Yeah, you're probably right.
Maybe precipitation data, but
Because
that's not
he's a
true.
meteorologist, so he might say precip is like his own personal
Precip.
jargon shorthand thing. I've heard meteorologists do that.
That's just not true.
Well, no, he's not saying
To get-
precipitata. He's saying precipitation. Like, so, is there a problem with precipitation during the Ice Age?
There would have been less of it in general, but
No, they would be about the same, but don't forget snow is also precipitation.
Yeah.
well, I just mean, well, okay, maybe not less, but it definitely would have been different because the oceans were like a couple hundred feet lower. So you'd have a lot less evaporation just due to a lot less surface area.
But the water cycle still occurs, and it would actually come down as hail, ice sheets, and snow instead of rain.
But is there a problem with this guy? He basically applies his own worldview to geology and sort of weather, and then goes, well, there's a problem there for the mate. No, there's not. Like, there's a problem under your model of it. That's the thing. It's very strange. I've seen them do this before. T-Rock does this all the time.
Yeah,
He sort of goes, oh, well, there's a problem with the amount of time it takes. And it's like, no, there's a problem under your model. There's no problem under the mainstream model of geology.
Yeah, just something maybe you could say if you talk to him again. Your ignorance does not indicate a lack of evidence. Like, ugh, it bugs me.
Oh, I think I upset him. He
Get an
was
ice-
right out of there after that debate ended. He was gone. He didn't even stop to say goodbye or anything. Yeah, he was out.
sheet. How are they going to get it in the dry areas? And we know that during the Ice Age, these lakes grew because Lake Bonneville grew at least 300-400 feet and overtopped the Red Rock Pass in southeast Idaho and cut the pass down about 350 feet and caused a flood for 8 weeks in southern Idaho on the Snake River. It's called the Lake Bonneville flood. So these lakes actually rose, and they were associated with the Ice Age because 2 of these lakes have shorelines on end moraines coming out of some of the mountains. For instance, out of the Sierra Mountains, Lake Russell was about 700 feet deeper than Mono Lake, and it cut a shoreline on the end moraine.
Are you going to explain that they're glacial lakes?
What was that?
Is he going to explain that they're glacial lakes, or is he just going to say that, oh, where did these lakes come from? Yeah, glacial lakes. They were lakes of water behind a glacial ice wall. And where do you think the Bonneville and the Missoula floods come from?
I don't know. Do you think he could tell you what a pot and kettle are?
I assume, like, that to me, that says, like, tea time.
Oh, like a kettle hole is just a small glacial lake.
Okay. And what's a pot?
Actually, did I make that up?
Oh, look, I wouldn't know the difference. I like, seriously, if you did, I wouldn't know. So,
I think I might have. Yeah, I think I might have just slipped that in.
It's kettle
yeah,
and void, but not a kettle and pot. But yeah.
No, okay, they're also called potholes. That's why. Which, yes, that's basically what they are.
According to what I'm reading here, a kettle is a vessel usually made of metal with a handle used for boiling liquids or cooking food.
He's talking in geological terms.
I know. I'm very
Yeah.
aware. Result of blocks of dead ice left behind by retreating glaciers, which come surrounded by sediment deposited by saltwater streams.
Sorry, I was distracted by a weird thing on Google.
Yeah, the amount of stupidity that is coming along going, oh, look how deep these lakes were. Now, can you explain where they were coming from? Because we know. We can show you where the glaciers were.
No, Beamsy, it's a mystery. Beamsy, stop. It has to be a mystery.
But he even talked about the Bonneville floods and the Missoula floods. And look, we know what flood deposits look like. We know what a massive flood event looks like. But all this happened after the flood.
And this gave me flashbacks to arguing with sea science last night.
I think it would be more constructive to argue with a brick wall than sea science.
Oh, that's right. I gotta.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
We had a glaciation, and Lake Bonneville cut a shoreline on that. The evidence for these lakes is tremendous. We have shorelines all over there, very distinct shorelines and raised deltas, so we know these lakes existed.
We sure do.
And it was
have
the same
of these
in other areas of the world. Australia had a lot of lakes. Africa had a lot of lakes. The Dead Sea had a lake in it. All over the earth, where it was generally dry, we had lakes. And in the Sahara Desert and Saudi Arabia, which are very dry area now, we had evidence of lakes and big rivers. And we even have a lot of fossils of amphibious animals like hippos in the Sahara Desert during the Ice Age. And we had man lived by the thousands, and he left his cave art, tens of thousands of petroglyphs, they would be called, on rocks. How do you get this within uniformitarian Ice Age?
Why does he keep saying that all these low areas where water pools during large rain events or large downpour events lakes that would have existed in they're areas below sea level, so how rivers go from high to low, and if it just happens that this area is lower than sea level, wouldn't it go, oh, this is the much nicer way to go?
He just keeps bringing up he keeps bringing up actual facts and observations about stuff tangentially related, and then just saying, how explain though?
There's no explanation, not even a simple explanation for what this is supposed to be. This is almost, it's like a 1.5 hour sermon on this is what we know and this is what we don't know, and it's all the flood.
Yeah,
it's extremely difficult, if not impossible. Another mystery of the Ice Age was how all the animals spread to all the continents.
No! That's one of the most well understood parts. Just if sea levels fall by a couple 100 feet, you're going to have a lot more land exposed, and animals capable of walking will walk. It's that simple.
But
and
again,
how did man?
He's sort of thinking that it has to happen within a short amount of time. It doesn't.
Yeah. Also, there might be a little bit of background noise. Girlfriend's making dinner.
This is like trying to fit a square peg in a hypercube hole.
Okay, Titan Uranus. Yes, I agree with you. He should. I can show this.
This is the first time I haven't
Hey,
seen
Titan.
Titan without a wrench.
Oh, look, you've got to give Titan a wrench, man. Like that isn't on. You've got to.
How to wrench people.
You just go to the chat, and there should be 3 dots beside their name, and you should be able to add moderator. It's good to have a couple of moderators in your chat to just keep an eye on things.
Yeah, fair.
Like, I've already got Titan as a moderator on both my YouTube channels just because.
Oh, absolutely.
Here, Titan,
Look,
have fun.
Well, Titan Uranus is he has helped my channel so much, and a big shout out to Titan, absolute champion, and yeah, just helps people all over the place. He's really undervalued, and Ger gives him way too much crap.
We've seen 20 minutes of this, and we've been at it an hour and a half. I knew this was going to be bad.
Sorry.
It's not your fault. It's
if need be, we could split it into 2 streams. That's fine.
I just knew this was going to be bad. I just didn't know it was going to be this bad.
Also, I learned something new today. All this time, whenever I want to give somebody a wrench, I go to my my studio, and then down to the community tab, and then over to the thing,
Really?
and then down to the thing. Yeah, I do it the hard way. I did not know that you could use the triple dots to mod somebody. And also, hi, Titan.
I'll put it on 1.5 speed. Maybe that'll help a little bit. Because at least he'll be spreading bullshit for less long.
Spread. How did the animals in particular spread to North America, Central America, and South America?
I can't believe
This
we're
is
talking
another
about
mystery
man
which
spreading.
can be solved by the post-flood rapid ice age.
Oh, okay. So he's wanting to use the Ice Age as a mechanism for why animals could spread after the Ark.
Mm-hmm.
That actually somewhat makes sense.
But the rapidity that he's talking about would kill everything from the Ark before they actually had a chance to go anywhere.
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
that's your only problem.
But
the koalas with no eucalyptus isn't a problem,
I can at least see how he would connect the dots.
Even though the dots are about 5 miles apart.
It's
Yeah, with a
tenuous,
sea
yes.
of other dots in between.
So many dots.
Oh, this music actually has
One of
a
the
nice
most
funk
significant
sped up.
mysteries is the extinction of the woolly mammoths in Siberia, Alaska, and the Northwest Territories, Yukon Territory, in the northwest part. A woolly mammoth is essentially a hairy elephant with 3 types of hair. The longest is about 3 feet long, the outer hair. Woolly mammoth had a hump on its head, small ears.
Didn't they get hunted to extinction?
Combination
They're
of
not an
hunting and
elephant.
flying.
Yes, they're proboscidean, but they're not an elephant.
Yeah, they're essentially an elephant in the way a dolphin is essentially a whale.
Yeah,
Look,
it's just,
Beamsy, he's a creationist. You can't expect him to get phylogeny right. You're asking
that's
too
true.
much of him.
it's just. Oh, they're just hairy elephants. No, no.
Ears, a hump on its
An
back,
elephant
and
kind.
its back sloped pretty good. There was another type of mammoth called the Columbian mammoth, was much larger, about 14 feet tall, while the woolly mammoth was about 11 feet tall.
Oh, okay. Actually, side note, like I've seen
Called the Columbian mammoth, was much larger, about 14
I've seen like specimens of the Columbian mammoth in person. They are gigantic.
You might say they're mammoth.
True, but yeah, like
They have a lot of mastodon.
okay, that's it. Stream over.
Yeah.
14
You
feet
can
tall,
show
and the
yourself
woolly mammoth
out
was probably
there.
11 feet tall. When you think of the Ice Age, usually it's these 2 woolly mammoths that come to your mind when you think of the animals of the Ice
The Columbian mammoth wasn't woolly.
Age. Why they don't exist now? They're part of the great extinction at the end of the Ice Age. Not only that, there are other mysteries associated with their existence in Siberia. First of all, how many were there? If there's just a few, that wouldn't be any big deal. But
Okay, the Columbian mammoth existed in America, but okay.
Hmm.
And
Sure.
they're known from things like the Lahar tar pits.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Isn't that California?
Yeah, the Librarian tar
Yeah.
and the Laharan tar pits. I showed you something about them before.
Yeah,
What-
yeah.
What's the big like pit with a ton of mammoths somewhere in? Is that Mammoth Springs?
I do believe it is so. I can't remember the exact place of it, but I know the Librarian tar pits are in the middle of Las Vegas. Sorry, not
Okay,
Las
yeah.
Vegas. It's in California
Or-
somewhere.
Yeah,
Or
near Los
It
Angeles.
says Hot Springs, South Dakota. 58 Columbian and 3 woolly mammoths. Hot damn.
It's because of the hot springs, middle of an ice age. You know, you're looking for a nice steaming cup of tea.
Maybe
My
a little
brain
too
is going
soon.
into bad places now.
Oh dear.
When does it ever not, BMZ?
No, I'm just picturing now the Columbia mammoth is really just a woolly mammoth that just had to run away from the hot springs naked.
It was going bald, so it shaved like I did.
No, they went to the changing room. They took off all their furs and left them in the changing room. And then the ice age came, and the Columbia mammoth went no, and ran away just all naked. Like, I'm sorry, that's where my brain went. Now after that, it was just no.
Okay.
That's
That's about as good as his explanations for things. Let's face it.
It might be better, actually.
Yeah, might actually.
There's
be
a
better.
causal chain of events.
even though it's stupid.
It's still there.
According to the experts that study the mammals of the ice age in that region, there are millions of them still buried in the permafrost. The bones and tusks of the woolly mammoth are so well preserved you can use the ivory of the tusks still today. And then some of our piano keys and cue balls are made out of mammoth ivory. Why are they well preserved? If they sat around in the elements, within a matter of 24 years, they would have disintegrated. So, and again, why are they in the permafrost?
They get buried. It's pretty simple. The one he's showing now, we know how she died. She fell into a pit of mud and drowned.
Oof.
Like, we know how most of them die. That's a big part of paleontology.
Right.
You reconstruct the life history of the animal you find.
Yeah.
Permafrost. Permafrost is rock hard. How would
It's rock hard now.
Look at
Doesn't
this
mean it
clay
was
jug. It's
always.
rock hard. How did the ancients mold it?
How do rivers create sandstone? It's stone.
It's rock
Magnets, how
hard.
do they work?
How did this
Where'd you
mudstone
get
become stone? It's made of mud.
down in the permafrost? Another mystery associated with the woolly mammoths is that you find some carcasses. And they define a carcass as any scrap of flesh. As far as whole carcasses, or mostly whole, we only have a couple dozen. And then when they analyzed the stomach contents, they discovered that the food was only half decayed. Why was it half decayed?
Because it was frozen.
Do these guys understand how sort of, temperature works and decay works? Like,
They
And
say the heat
mummification
problem's
and-
not real. They don't know how temperature
that's
works.
true. That's
They
true.
don't store anything in a refrigerator because it's modern and scary.
It's satanic.
Oh, yeah, the satanic computers.
If it sat around, it should be decayed quickly by the gastric juices and bacteria and the digestive enzymes and acids in the stomach. It doesn't end there. Other mysteries are some carcasses and skeletons are found in a general standing position, as if they got caught in a bog and sunk.
That is a statue, sir.
Yeah,
Like-
This is a Wendy's.
I'm just currently enjoying Hillhugger's comment, the Gandalf line.
Gandalf line.
No, it's actually called the Wallace
the
line.
wallet line. Gandalf line.
What is?
On one side,
Oh,
you have elephants, tigers. You have you've
like
got-
cassowaries and.
no. That's on the other
orangutans.
side. The line is very, very pronounced. You could literally stand on one island, and on another island about 5 meters across the bay would be a completely different
It's
diversity
just-
of animals.
It's just one of
I
those
didn't know that.
really
That's
weird
fascinating.
biology things, isn't it?
They don't know exactly what caused it, but the line is incredibly well defined. Have a look at it, the Wallace line. It's a
I've heard of it. It's weird and cool. Like
it's
a lot of things in
exclusively through,
biology.
yeah, it's exclusively through the Indonesian islands, and it's just very, very pronounced. Because you could stand on one island and you could see the other islands that go, okay, there are completely different species of birds, mammal life. There is even completely different tree species from this island to that island, from in front of me. But if I go behind me, no, they're the same as this island.
Yeah.
And they can't explain what caused it. I haven't even really looked up much into it. It's more of a biology thing. But yeah, the hill hugger is good. That line is just fascinating.
It really is. Just weird.
Unfortunately, it's rare to find bog sediments around these carcasses. They're in a different type of sediment, which is a clue on why they died.
Okay, what type of sediment? Can you tell us? No.
Also, in some of the carcasses, because of the state of the blood, we found out that 5 of these animals suffocated. Also, the animals have broken.
Okay, again with
Are
her.
we gonna start saying flood, like they drowned?
State of the blood.
Is
We
that
found out that 5.
I think he is. Like we
No.
have mud in her lungs.
But he's talking about two different things now. First, he's talking about, oh, we found these in sediment. Yes. She wasn't found in sediment. She was found in permafrost. Permafrost is not a sediment. Permafrost is a description of what the ground is like.
right?
These animals suffocated. Also, the animals have broken bones. Like the Barasavaca mammoth had a broken forelimb and broken pelvis and broken ribs. It takes a lot to break the pelvis of a hairy elephant. Well, how can scientists explain all these mysteries during the Ice Age?
Things get buried and a lot of weight gets put on them. Would probably be a pretty good explanation. Or they fall.
How many bones do you usually find that are broken when you go digging up things? Most of them.
Not necessarily they broke before or during their sort of death throes. Like the rock can break them, right? Just warping of the environment, right?
Yes. Like the vertebra that I've got in my hand right now has a large crack through the middle of it.
I managed to look up the mammoth he's talking about. Yeah, it fell off a cliff and died.
All the bones are broken. How did that happen? It's a mystery.
Still, cool specimen. That's a cool specimen.
Yeah, no, totally.
Though I'm having trouble finding like a actual picture of it. There is Ovka. Berezovka mammoth. Oh, nope. Okay. I did find a couple pictures. So, yeah, the picture they've been showing is a statue reconstruction. The actual one was much less complete, go figure. Though it does look like it still had some skin and fur attached.
Right.
But the baby one they've been showing is Lubia, the one in Hong Kong.
Yes, that's her name.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I've probably butchered it, but
Can you spell it?
Lyuba.
Yes. Very, like, poor baby, but, like, this is exceptional preservation here. Like, she's missing her tail and part of her ear because they were gnawed off by sled dogs. But other than that, she's almost entirely complete, except for missing most of her hair.
Right. And that mammoth jerky that they were chewing on the other week has nothing to do with it?
Well, I don't think dogs usually eat hair, but still, beautiful specimen. Gorgeous.
Scientists have tried for 200 years. They come up with various ideas which have serious problems. One of them is they lived up there during a little warmer interglacial. The problem with that is you still have the bogs in the summer and the bog vegetation that's toxic to all these grazers. Most of the animals.
So you don't eat that.
Yeah, feed on all the grass that was up there because we know that was there. Sometimes they would travel through the bogs and some would get stuck. And bogs are pretty anoxic, so they wouldn't rot, and then winter would come and they'd freeze.
That lived up there, which is a couple dozen, ate grass. They were grazers. That doesn't fit. Others have said, well, maybe they're up there during a cold glacial period, which was maybe 10, 15, 20 degrees colder than it is today up there. Oh, but then what would they eat? Nothing would hardly grow. There wasn't enough to eat. Remember, there's millions of them. So they really are clueless because of their uniformitarian bias on explaining the mysteries of the woolly mammoths. There's also an idea.
Projection?
Yeah.
Uniformitarian bias. Like, you have no bias at all, sir. You're just.
The problem is, the uniformitarian bias does not work in our time scale. Yes, because we don't operate in your time scale.
Yeah.
I just want to get a quick shot. Okay, let's see. Ember, then Reed. Which of these do you think is a mastodon and which is a mammoth?
I think Mr. Big Forehead would be the mastodon.
Yep.
So
Fine.
left or right?
Left.
Nope, left is a mammoth. Mastodons have long sloped skulls, and they usually have
there
much
you go.
straighter tusks.
I am backwards.
Fun fact, the name mastodon also means nipple tooth, which is actually pretty accurate to their teeth.
Hmm.
And it's one of the best ways you can tell them apart if you just have the teeth. Because mammoth teeth look like modern elephants. Mastodon are like big and spiky because they literally ate trees.
What was
Nice.
a stegodont?
Stegodont? That would be roofed tooth? That'd be the translation.
I think that was a mastodon, if I remember correctly. It's the one with the shovel jaw.
No, the shovel jaw is a different.
I think the Stegodon was a lizard man unit from.
Platybelodon.
Warhammer.
That was the shovel one. Stegodon, I know, lived on the island of Flores with. One of them lived on the island of Flores with Homo floresiensis, the hobbit.
It wasn't a mastodon or a mammoth. It was a stegodonia, which is different.
And
Wow, their tusks were insane.
Mm-hmm.
Insane. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Oh.
But those tusks are massive.
There's been a lot of really, really weird proboscideans over the past few million years. Take a look at this one. This is Dinotherium. It has huge tusks from its lower jaw. It is bloody massive. I think the head's a little small here, but yeah, big.
My favorite's got to be the Paraceratherium.
Ah, that is a rhino, sir.
Yes, but that's my favorite. The like, let's be honest, it's a penis horse. But let's be honest.
That has never crossed my mind. It is beautiful.
Really?
Noble, sir. No. Shame on you.
That's a penis horse, if ever I've seen one.
Shame on you.
Once it's
No,
seen,
that's
it will
honest-
never be. Once it's seen, it will never be unseen.
Yeah, I was thinking like fat giraffe, but no, that Marx
I
is
thought
better.
you played Ark. That's obviously.
I have
Penis
played
horse.
Ark. That still never crossed my mind. How dare you?
Yes, some of my favorite names for
He's
Paraceratherium on
calling
that
this a
game is
penis horse.
the penis pony.
Yeah, my girlfriend's disgusted too.
Well,
What would you have called it, dear? What would you have called it?
Ugly.
Okay, she would have called it ugly. That's not much better, but oh well.
well, I mean, nobody said penises were beautiful.
If it was
I mean,
anything,
some are, but
I guess.
Hypotheses in that how specifically do we explain the state of decay of the vegetation in the stomachs? Baron Cuvier in the early 1800s had the idea that because it's only half decayed, it had to be quick frozen. And so he initiated a quick freeze hypothesis. Now, about 1960, Bird's Eye Frozen Food Company, which deals in frozen meat, decided to do a study on the cooling of meat and how fast it take to cool it and what temperatures you need. And they concluded that you'd have to quick freeze it down to a temperature of 150 degrees Fahrenheit below zero suddenly. Now that is quite an order to
The
count
hell you would.
a cold.
yeah. I mean, like, what's
What's he talking about? Like, you can, yeah, if you're going to snap freeze stuff, sure, but you don't have to snap freeze it in order for it to be preserved.
well, he's saying to preserve it standing up. Well, actually,
Well, no,
I'm
not if
curious.
it's.
No, I thought he was
Not if
talking
it's,
about
like,
the half
buried in
decayed stuff in
mud.
the stomach. Like the
I
whole
think
half
that
decay
too.
thing. You don't need negative 150. Like, I mean, you might, in order to try to get the internal temperature down fast enough to call it quick freezing, but it doesn't have to be 150 to freeze. Anything below freezing will work.
Yeah, and I just looked it up. Elephants can sleep standing up too. So my guess would be like a mammoth might sleep standing up, die in its sleep, rigor mortis sets in, and then it freezes.
Well, there's also the possibility of, when you're, if it falls over and dies, and then the land moves, like part of it erodes or whatever, and then the frozen corpse just gets turned.
Or if it's just caught in mud or something like that, it's going to die standing up, and it's
Yeah.
not going to fall over. That's
with it
there's a
sleeping
million
standing
other
Yeah,
ways
but-
than there's a million other ways than flash freezing to explain why it's standing up here. Like,
Yeah. You have to go with the least logical option.
Got to make it sound the most extreme. This is so unbelievable. Clearly, the Bible is the more rational option.
Obviously.
front that would do that. So the uniformitarian ideas fall far, far short. Then there's a group of scientists and even lay people that have tried to figure this out.
I might make this a catchphrase of mine. Your ignorance does not indicate a lack of evidence, sir. It just doesn't. Does not.
Put it on a T-shirt.
Maybe eventually.
Get your merch store started.
Maybe if I hit 100 subs, we'll see.
merch store
out,
early.
and they could be called the non-creationist catastrophists, of which Immanuel Velikovsky, about 50, 60 years ago, was one of their chief advocates. And he was great at looking at the Earth and seeing all these mysteries. The woolly mammoth was his chief mystery, the demise of the woolly mammoth in Siberia and Alaska. And he tried to explain it by Mars and Venus moving through the solar system, coming close to the Earth and causing all these catastrophes. Other ideas is that the crust of the Earth shifted on the mantle, and so the woolly mammoths were in a warm climate, suddenly shifted up toward the pole and froze instantly. So there you have ideas like that that are not believed by hardly anyone nowadays.
Because they're ridiculous on their on the face of it. That just those sound like ideas that someone just like spitballed, and you're taking it to like they actually.
Well, you are
believe it.
talking about answers in Genesis here. Like, let's face it, half of their content is ideas that they spitballed in order to. I mean, but it's all got a purpose to it, right? You can see the purpose is. And don't forget that these people, their mission statement is to give God the glory for his creation. Like, you've got to understand that everything they do is centered around that one sort of, motto, basically. That is their mission statement. Like Doctors Without Borders' mission statement is to provide medical assistance to anyone that needs it. That is a thing that drives them.
Would you like me to explain where that idea comes from, the crustal shift?
Sure, could be interesting.
It comes from early idea of the pole shifts. When they thought that the poles shifted, it also shifts the entire crust of the Earth, and that creates a devastating effect for both climates. That's why they thought the actual ice ages were. They thought that these were locations that were originally at the North and South poles, because the Earth has shifted when the poles shifted, and that's why I think it was one of Levency's idea in regards to how to explain the glaciation events and how the poles shift over time. But it was used actually in the movie of 2012, that silly movie. The only good thing of that was the Yellowstone eruption. That one looked cool.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I guess
it's always
that
bugged
is
me
a
when-
bit more logical. That's interesting. I say a bit.
This was before they actually had all the seismograph data, because they thought that the lithosphere let go of the underlying mantle and then actually allowed it to shift and then grabbed on again as the pole shifted, and that's how everything was done.
I mean, interesting.
Yeah, all of this has been completely debunked with a better understanding of
Yeah.
tectonic movements and everything else like that. But that's where this idea of they were flash frozen, and they keep speaking in geological time scales and thinking, oh, just a short time. Yeah, human civilization has been around for an incredibly short time on a geological scale.
Is it Carl Sagan's clock analogy?
Yeah. They say long time, quick time,
calendar.
short time. Yes, but you got to realize when you're talking on geological aspects, we talk in thousands of years. We don't talk in, it happened 10 months.
Yeah, to quote Carl Sagan, we humans appear on the cosmic calendar so recently that our recorded history occupies only the last few seconds of the last minute of December 31st. Dinosaurs died out last... Is it last Wednesday or last Thursday? It's one of the two.
Yeah, the scale that people think when they look at geological time is not something that a layman thinks in, because they think a short time ago was, that was last week or so. No, we're talking short time ago was 500,000 years.
Yeah, which I mean, like, you can't really fault them for, considering we live at most about 100, at least right now. Who knows? Maybe as human lifespans continue to increase over time, it'll become more understandable.
It's more to do with the way our brains work, because it's a predictive engine, and it's usually for predicting due to our own experiences. And it takes a disassociation of our own mind to start operating on the really, really big or the really, really small, because we can't associate with that.
Yeah.
More rocks.
The uniformitarian geologists claim there are 5 major ice age periods in Earth history. The last one was called the Pleistocene or Quaternion Ice Age, and the last 2.5 million years in their time scale. The other 4 are in hard rocks, and they're from 2 billion years old. There's one about 900 to 700 million years old. There's one about 450 million years ago, and there's one about 300 million years ago in their time scale.
Was there one in the Permian?
I don't think there was one in the Permian.
Or would that have been end Carboniferous?
I think, it was the end of the Carboniferous, because they were having issues with, that's what one of the scientific mysteries were, what caused the Ice Age at the end of the Carboniferous era. But they don't want to say that as the full title in that 18 Mysteries.
Okay. Oh,
Because
it
I
was
think-
called the Karoo Ice Age. At least used to be.
Yeah, but that's still we don't really know how that one occurred because there are so many little things that could change the climate of why it did that.
And just to be clear, when you're saying we don't know how it occurred, you're saying we're entirely clueless and have no idea?
We have many different fields of possibilities.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of these
Yeah.
lasted 100 million years, and some of them they claim were so devastating that they completely covered the globe in ice and snow, which is actually a major problem because if you ever did that, the reflection of sunlight back to space would cool it down to minus 100 degrees centigrade, and it would stay there permanently unless you had some monstrous catastrophe to break up that ice.
Okay, not permanently, but why do you think it killed off most of life on Earth? Like,
Well, it's also that, like, you know, these ice ages, how long do they last for?
some for, I think one said 300 million years for one of them.
Right.
And it's usually volcanic activity that goes, okay, reset.
Yeah, burns a hole and then it all shifts back.
So
I mean, thankfully, thanks to human activity, we've probably stopped the next ice age.
Well, I don't think, I think doing sort of unconstrained experiments on our climate is probably not a great idea. Like,
Probably.
and plus, you don't know if we've actually, you know, we've actually solved the ice age, or maybe it might come back worse. Like, we don't know, like, what.
Well, in order for it to come back worse, like we'd have to dump a crap ton of the carbon out of the atmosphere, right?
Or you
Well,
could just
yeah.
put sulfur oxide into the atmosphere.
But
Also,
there
just
is an ocean current. If too much water gets into, like, the Atlantic, the conveyor which transfers heat might actually shut off. That was the whole.
yeah, that
point,
happened
and
during the
if
last ice age.
Yeah, the
Right.
Gulf Stream. It's actually a little bit of
Yep.
an issue just from the melt off of Greenland. It's been weakening the
Yeah.
Gulf Stream because of the interference, which in turn is fucking with the climate in Europe, which in turn is fucking with global climate.
Yeah. Like, will humanity survive? Yes. Will our civilization completely and utterly change? Also, yes.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't think there's any guarantee that humans survive, kind of thing. I just think that if we do go extinct, then big deal. Like, it's not, life will go on.
Yeah, the cosmos won't really care.
Yeah. But I do believe that humanity will survive.
Oh, probably, yeah, probably that, yeah.
At least so long as nothing obscenely catastrophic happens.
Well, if you're talking about, like, you know, runaway climate change, like, you're talking about sort of runaway global warming, like, it becomes similar to kind of Venus's runaway global, you know, warming kind of thing, then we're not going to survive that.
I don't think we have enough to create a Venus-like atmosphere.
Yeah, maybe not, but, you know, this is the thing, we don't know for sure, right? It's just sort of like, yeah, well,
like, to put in perspective, I think one of the points in Earth where carbon dioxide was highest in the atmosphere and things were livable was during the Mesozoic, like during the Cretaceous.
right.
And that was, I think it was 2 or 3, maybe even 4 orders of magnitude above what we're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So
possible.
we are
but
warming up, but we have a long way to go before it gets deadly to breathe.
Well, if the Permian Triassic extinction event didn't create a runaway greenhouse effect, I don't think we're going to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
That is...
Okay, Beamsy, you say that and watch the Eastern African Rift just create a whole new trap bigger than Siberian.
that would do it.
Yeah.
Well, that would have the possibility. But the idea of what Titan just said, it's not exactly correct that the ice weight actually caused the volcanic eruptions. It's extenuated the circumstances of the volcanic eruptions. One, by allowing more ice to be into the actual crust of the Earth and be brought down into the mantle, lowering the melting point, and creating a thicker, for lack of a better word, cork over areas where it would normally be vented.
And I do feel like ice weight could do that because like there's substantial glacial rebound even still going on just from the last ice age, and that was nowhere near the worst of it. Like glaciers can push down rock hundreds of feet. That could easily set off something.
Conceivably.
It does. It makes it worse, is the better way of putting it. But it doesn't trigger the events. That's the triggering usually comes from when the water from the crust actually gets down into the mantle, as you would have seen if you watched that documentary in regards to that volcano that blew its top.
Right.
That one on the Chinese-Korean border. That the very interesting one. That's the.
Which reminds me, later on in this series, we'll talk about a volcano that blew its side out.
Those are always fun.
Didn't that happen with that one in America? Like, didn't that blow?
That was Mount St. Helens.
That's
Mount St. Helens, yes, this one.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Just a volcanic eruption sideways.
Did it just happen to coincide when Creationist was really taking off?
I think so. Like, it was bound to happen sooner or later, and it just happened to happen then.
It's hard to isolate cause and effect in that kind of situation because when a titanic cataclysmic event like that happens and people are pitching something along the lines of like the trees and the rapid deposition and all that crap, and now they can point to the thing that could be the thing that made their nonsense take off. Is like, now look, we have evidence in real time of at least this one very specific area of what we're talking about.
I was just talking more about that it was side splitting and something was laughing at it.
Oh yeah.
It was so stupid it split its side laughing.
Well, that could do it.
But when you talk about Mount St. Helens, that wasn't Titanic. That was a little baby eruption.
Oh yeah. Drop in the bucket comparatively. I heard.
Right.
Well, I read about some of the previous Yellowstone eruptions, and they said, this much ash per month or some crap like that. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but they said the people who were hearing the story in the book were, okay, but what does that mean, though? Because we have no context. And they said, okay, well, for comparison, Mount St. Helens was like 0.5% of that total. And they were like, oh, shit.
I mean, maybe put another way. If Yellowstone happens to go off, you and I won't have time to move out of North America.
Yeah, on this line, the level of stupidity that this was going, because I had this epiphany at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I gave Doctor some of the numbers. Do you know about the volcanic explosive index?
I haven't heard of such a thing.
It's a measurement in how much ejecta is released in a volcanic eruption.
Okay.
Think Richter scale, but volcano.
Yeah, it's logarithmic. You've got 0, which is what the Hawaiian Islands are, which is just pouring lava onto the ground, barely anything.
Okay.
Then you've got the 1, which is basically spitting out some dust and a little bit of magma every so often. That goes up until you get to about 4, where you start getting plumes of ash and gas coming out. When you start getting into the 6s, that's Krakatoa.
Oh.
St. Helens was a 5.
Okay.
And which means Krakatoa was 10 times bigger than St. Helens.
That makes sense. Krakatoa was legendary for its, explosiveness.
Do you know about Tambora, which happened a couple of years before Krakatoa?
I remember someone saying that it was like a firecracker versus a full stick of dynamite.
Well, Krakatoa Mount St. Helens released 1 kilometer cubed of ejecta. That's a 5.
Okay.
Krakatoa was about 10 kilometers cubed of ejecta, so 10 times bigger. Tambora was 100 kilometers cubed.
We know what something like Pompeii was.
Pompeii was.
I can look that up while you're explaining.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Vesuvius.
Because I saw that like exhibition when it came to my city. It's insane. I just fascinated.
What's the scale called again, Beamsy?
Volcanic Explosive Index, and it was 5 for Vesuvius. Pompeii's the city. You're asking about Vesuvius. But the Pleistocene eruption of the Yellowstone was an 8, and that's 1,000 kilometers cubed of ejecta released.
That's a shit ton of ejecta.
According to this, the Yellowstone caldera would be about an 8 on the scale.
Yes, that's 1,000. Now, I was looking at one. I explained to Mark before about what tuff is and tuffite.
Mm-hmm.
There is one particular rock that we can actually look into called ignebrite. It's basically pure tuff that has been solidified exclusively from ejecta. I decided to look at some documentation to find out what level of ejecta was found. No, Tonga was 7. The Taipo eruption, the Taipo volcanic incursions within New Zealand. If that had to happen in one eruption event, it would have to have released 26,500 kilometers cubed of ejecta, just based on the ignebrite. So that would be a volcanic index of 10.
Oof.
Now, I then actually looked at what the ignebrite samples within Yellowstone is. This is where it starts getting really, really, really stupid. How much ejecta do you think you'd need for if all the Yellowstone eruptions had to happen in that 1 year of the flood?
Well, since it's logarithmic, there's how many Yellowstone eruptions?
12.
Holy shit. So
yeah, there's a lot.
It'd bump it up at least 1 order, probably 2.
But are you asking about how many big eruptions or how many times it is actually released ejecta? Because that's 2 different encounters.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I'm talking about how much ejecta has been released, and that would have all had to have happened within the 1 year of the flood.
I found a map of just if Yellowstone erupted.
Then that's an 8. That's 1,000 cubic kilometers of ejecta.
Yeah. And yeah, everything in red is instant death.
And if you get one to compare it to St. Helens, which was a 6, it will give you an idea of just how stupid it is if you actually take all the ejecta from the Yellowstone events. 8.7 million cubic kilometers.
Well, that's insane.
That would be a volcanic explosive index of 12. You wouldn't want to be on the same planet that something like that happened.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, so if this is measuring ejecta, I wonder if you could use this to like measure stuff sent up by meteorite impacts, or is that a different?
No, same thing. That's how you actually can figure out just the sheer impact velocity, and that's why you could say that as I told you when I was looking at it, the Tampur eruption would basically be like two Chicxulub events at the same time, just all that. If the Yellowstone, that would be 120 Chicxulub events going off at one time.
Yeah, that 12 that you just mentioned, I just ran the math, and that would be enough ash to cover the entire surface of the Earth 17 meters deep with just pure ash.
Well, we haven't even got to I was going through three of the larger volcanic systems on the Earth. I started with Topa, which was in New Zealand. Then I went to Yellowstone, and then I went to Toba.
So that would cause a sort of volcanic winter, right? Like, just blot out all the sunlight.
Just question: what would the Chicxulub impact be? Because I can't seem to find that.
It was the impact that killed the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what its VEI is.
No, that's not VEI. That doesn't fall under VEI.
That's not volcanic. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a
sorry, I thought you said
meteorite
it
impact.
would.
It's measured in the same sort of destructive index, but it's got its own relations. But the volcanic explosive index is exclusively for volcanoes. It's the impacted. I can't remember. I know it's impact something. Impact ejector registry or something like that. It's been a long time since I've looked it up. But if you thought the Yellowstone was bad, I'll give Toba would have to be a VEI of 15. The numbers involved with just how large an explosion that would have to be is... Yeah, I don't think there'd be much of a Earth left at that sort of... And then I gave up.
Because we're well past the point we'd effectively sterilize the planet.
Yeah, I only did 3 of the imbrite deposits with the associated volcanic systems, and I had another 19 more to go.
Holy crap!
Jeez. Also, I found a map for the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs.
Ugh.
That's comparable, if not bigger, than Yellowstone.
That's like I said, that's comparable to about a VEI high 8 or a mid 9. That's about what you would expect from that.
Bloody hell. So, sorry, just trying to relate this to something more in my area.
Wouldn't an impact that large rupture... I mean, obviously it would rupture fault lines. It would cause severe earth tremors and shit. But wouldn't it also potentially trigger major volcanoes as well?
That's one of the hypotheses, yeah.
It actually does one thing called a flood basalt eruption. It forces out magma to come onto the surface in areas around it. So that's why you've got large igneous provinces around in the direction that it actually impacted. Yeah,
and you're right, and it would cause earthquakes, and it caused a nuclear winter that lasted for years.
Yeah, the Titan, as I said, Yellowstone was an 8 on the VEI index, and that's why the Chicxulub event would have been on about a mid 9, or probably even up to a low 10 for if you actually compare it to volcanoes.
Yeah, and people ask why the dinosaurs are extinct.
Yeah, but if you start talking about the ones that I was talking about an volcano explosive index of 15 to 16, which is the numbers I was starting to get, then I just went, no, this is just getting too absurd. The numbers are getting too big. So it's 10, 100,000, 10,000. It's 100,000 times bigger than the Chicxulub event.
Well, speaking of absurd things, So it's called a snowball Earth.
Yeah,
It's called snowball Earth. Now, their evidence is when they see a hard rock layer, they look at it and they say, oh, that looks like a glacial till sequence where you have rocks of various sizes floating in a finer grained matrix. Also, they've discovered you have scratched bedrock in some of these locations and scratched rocks. And also you have rocks in very fine layered sediment called dropstone varvites. These are supposedly the 3 diagnostic properties for an ancient glaciation found in the rocks. Well, right here, we're...
Well, you mentioned dropstones, and yeah, that's sign of a glacial activity. Basically, a glacier can go from the land into the ocean, and the rocks that are caught in the bottom will just drop out, and they'll like impact the sediment below, causing a really distinctive pattern.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
it also helps the way that salt water does the sedimentation. It's because of the ionization effect of the salt.
here we go. Here's a dropstone.
Aha.
Like really distinctive.
Yeah.
We're about 9,500 feet on top of the gravelly mountains of southwest Montana. Now, this area right here, you're seeing just a small part of this bedrock that was scratched. It's in sandstone. Actually, it used to be right up there, about 15 feet above my head. It's all kind of slumped down. All over in these rocks, you find the scratched bedrock, but it's been broken up by probably sinking action in this valley here. Right here was an area where they claimed was another ancient ice age during what's called the Eocene, about 50 million years ago. It was based on scratched bedrock, which you can see right here. And over in here, they're scratched in different directions. And this was one of their evidence. And you look in some of the rocks around here, some of the rocks like this one right here, well-rounded, you find some scratches on that. So they said there's 2 out of 3 diagnostic criteria in here for an ancient ice age. And they also found some other...
Is that hammer again?
...sediments.
Yeah. Also, wasn't the Eocene a period of a lot of warming?
Yeah.
Never heard of a ice age then, but possible, I guess.
I think it was either right at the beginning or right at the end. I know it was one of the bracketing things of it.
But also, like, could also be explained by the last ice age, because there were some periods where there was just so much ice, like it buried a lot of mountains.
Yeah, the Eocene is very much renowned for things like Titanoboa.
Yeah, Titanoboa. And a giant 20-foot long galloping crocodile that hunted on land.
No, Titanoboa was a boa constrictor.
I'm talking about another animal. I forget what it was called, but it was terrifying. Was it?
There have been a lot of horror movie monsters. Like, oh shit, fell out of my head. I had 2 different thoughts at the same time, and I lost the more interesting one. But the less interesting one is that there's a species of fish that was discovered a few years ago. I can't remember the name of it because the article just called it a murder fish. Apparently, it can crawl out of the water and survive in air for up to 24 hours, and it's big enough to grab onto and drag a baby.
Is it a snakehead?
It could be. I have no idea what the hell the name is called. But like these fish just come out of the river, can walk up to your house, grab your baby, and drag them back to the river. And what do you do?
Yeah, and I found it. It's called Barina sucus. Land-dwelling predatory crocodile.
Shit's just not nice.
Yeah. If humans were alive in any other part of Earth's history, there might be a chance of us going extinct if we didn't have modern technology.
Chance?
Well, I mean, we did have to contend with some pretty serious predators as it was, just not the fucking nightmares of other eras.
Okay, we had to deal with a cat, like with cats that came up to like here. We didn't have to deal with this.
Maybe that's why an intelligent species such as our own only evolved in this period, because in all previous periods, bears took a shot at it, and maybe fucking starfish and maybe octopuses, and who knows what else. But every time an intelligence tool using species arose, because of the loss of physical capability that comes with investing so much energy in the bigger brain, they got eaten by the monster of their age.
Well, have a look at what Megalania. That's the closest thing of the nightmare fuel that we would have had to deal with if it didn't go
Yep.
extinct.
But didn't the Aborigines have to deal with it?
Possibly, they don't know. But that's... See, it's only about half the size, maybe a third of the size of the crocodile nightmare fuel.
Well, I think that's a lower estimate.
Yeah, but
Still, yeah, just horrifying.
But look at the difference in size between that.
I love this display.
Oh, look, it's a fucking dragon.
Yeah,
Yes.
but if you actually compare the difference in size to that, to the
Rhinoceros.
crocodile and who's, yeah, it's...
Oh man, there was a whole category of crocodilians that lived on land. Like here's Caprisuchus, the boar croc. Like look at that thing.
But why though?
Yes.
It's life. Why not?
Yes.
Yeah, if it can evolve, it will.
But that's what I mean. The idea of
Like look
we
look at this shit. Look at this shit. There are crocodiles that climb trees.
Oh, good. Fantastic.
Your god has no power here.
I know. I was just thinking, like, what does this tell us about the creator of the universe? I think it might be Stephen King.
That's a this little guy looks like he's very happy.
Yep. Definitely
thing
I'll
having
give him a
a
pat on the
granddad.
head before he bites my finger off.
Yeah.
In Colorado. So they put it all together, and we had an Eocene ice age, they claimed, 50 million years ago. But one unfortunate problem presented itself. The Eocene in the uniformitarian system is very warm, based on all the tropical, subtropical vegetation we find at mid and even at high latitude. So you can't have a glaciation when it's so hot. So they had to get rid of this, even though they had 2 out of 3 supposed diagnostic.
Okay, now I'm curious.
It either would have happened at the beginning or the end of the Eocene. It wouldn't happen in the middle, what he's trying to represent.
Because I know there was a... Yeah, it looks like towards the very end it did dip quite a bit. It was still warmer than today, but possible. Or there was also... No, wait, here. Yeah, no, right at the start, it would have been pretty cold. Looks like there was a... going by isotope measures.
Because it would still be recovering from the little smack that it got about 10 million years earlier.
Yeah. Well, no, it would have been right at the end, not at the beginning. I read this backwards. Left is... for people who might not understand what the hell they're looking at, this is measuring an isotope of oxygen, which is a actually very lovely proxy for temperature. So you can see it goes up. Right here we have the about maximum of the Eocene, and then it just goes whee. So yeah, definitely possible.
Features for an ancient glaciation. How do you get out of it? How do you dodge where you claimed it was an ice age and now you don't? Well, they claimed it was a landslide. And you know something? I believe they're correct. In fact, I believe that's the answer for all those supposed ancient glaciations during those 4 major periods of Earth history in their time scale. And you can see some of them.
No.
Dino just showed we have diagnostic evidence that yes, this is where an ice age could occur.
Yeah, like this could definitely.
Converging lines of evidence? Never happens. Sorry, I had to get a coffee. This guy is just horrible.
No, that's fair.
I think your
I
sound
retrieved my coffee
cancellation
as
shut
well.
off, Mark.
Sorry?
I think your sound cancellation cut off the thing you normally have.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it's still going apparently. Why? Can you hear me slurp and mumble and stuff like
Just
that?
hearing a lot more echo, I guess.
Yeah.
Trying to think. Paleozoic. Jeez. My brain is melting.
Unlike the Ice Ages.
Yeah, okay. So you see this little dip here at the end of the Ordovician? Is my cursor showing?
Yes.
Okay. So this little dip here, I have seen that with my own eyes because I grew up in an area with a lot of Ordovician rock exposures and a lot of Silurian rock exposures. And I can see the transition. You go from tons of life, almost no rough sediment deposition, and then life picks up again. It's really easy to see in the rock, and you can see it all over the world.
There was a flood.
No.
I'm a bad man.
Right here. It came down this way. And some of them are well-rounded quartzite rocks. And these quartzite rocks, we know where the outcrop about 100 miles to the west in central Idaho, that's the nearest outcrop, is thick beds of quartzite. And they've been transported here in this area, and they're well-rounded. And there's also other types of debris in there that it picked up. When the floodwaters were running off the continents, the resistant rocks were carried and rounded, but it eroded a lot of other types of rocks. And these rocks were pulverized to fine particles or silt.
Okay, wait. So he's trying to say this was carried here by the flood. Well, don't they think the flood moved from the center of the continent to the west in this part? Like, why would it carry rocks from 100 miles west eastward? Am I the only one this isn't making sense to?
Maybe he's like
I don't
referring to
understand the
different
flood.
floods. Like, we've got the fucking big Montana Basin flood, but there's also he's trying to justify the global flood.
Yeah, Missoula flood
ended
went
up
from east to west. So,
Yeah.
he's not talking about the Missoula flood. Maybe if the ocean, because it was the deep cracked open, right? What was it? The
fountains.
Fountains. That's right.
Fountains
Thank
of
you.
the deep.
Fountains of the deep. So maybe he's saying that it was carried because the Pacific Ocean. I don't know. I don't understand the flood at all. It's just so ridiculous.
I don't think anyone does.
I love how
I'm trying to be charitable, and it's just sounding more. Yeah, I'm trying to be charitable, and just as I'm talking, it's like, how can anybody believe this shite? Holy crap!
We keep going. Okay, here's the evidence why you're wrong, buddy. Okay, you have this a little off. Okay, you're a moron. Listen, you little shit.
Sometimes being deposited at the same time as the quartzite. And in this location, a lot of times the quartzites are found within a finer grain matrix, and so that's why they thought that was the till characteristic. But all it is the finer particles eroded during the flood runoff and moving the quartzites 100 miles. And think of it, during the early flood, you had a lot of sediment form and tectonics going on, and then you'd have a lot of landsliding, and actually be submarine landsliding, it'd be under the water. And we can explain these features by gigantic submarine landslides during the flood. It can form the till-like feature where you have rocks floating in a finer grain matrix. That's the landslide signature also. It duplicates it.
No. What he's talking about is essentially a debris flow. And we know what debris flows look like, and it's not that. whenever you have a natural movement of sediment where it's suspended, you're going to have some type of sorting. It's not going to be completely random and shit. That is diagnostic almost of tills.
Also, as a landslide moves down a slope, it'll scratch the bedrock like you see right here. Also, scratched bedrock like this can be formed by water moving at high speeds with a lot of debris moving across it. It can also be formed by faulting and probably volcanic eruptions that push a lot of debris out. And scratched bedrock was even formed like this at Mount St. Helens when Spirit Lake came rushing up and then rushing down, carrying those millions of logs in there. And when it came up and down, it scratched the bedrock. So there's a lot of ways to scratch the bedrock besides glaciation. Because you have scratched bedrock is no automatic indication of an ancient ice age.
He says that like that's our only piece of evidence.
So how much cooling during the summer do you need for an ice age? Well, you have to at least cool off the average temperature at least to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. But actually, the average temperature needs to be below 32 degrees Fahrenheit because the summer sun is so powerful it can melt snow and ice even well below freezing.
Okay, that's just not true.
Does that reflect a lot of the sun? Like, because of the albedo?
They do, but like a really big thing with glaciers is they are constantly flowing. So what you really need to have is
Active
much
glaciers.
more. Well, I assume he's talking about active glaciers.
Right. Sorry.
You need to have a lot. You need to have more accumulation above the snow line than you have evaporation or melting below the snow line. That's what you need. And like that can happen due to minor climatic shifts that just push the snow line down a little bit, or like wind patterns changing. There's a lot you can do.
So there's another thing that he keeps dancing around, and I've started to get the shape of it. How he keeps proposing the flood as an explanation for all these supposed ice ages or whatever. He showed that one sample with the scratches going in two opposite directions. Maybe you could make a case for that with a single flood if the rock gets tumbled or so, whatever. But when you've got scratches that clearly have different levels of erosion, like one is like millions of years older than the other, and he knows the rates of erosion, how the fuck does that compute with a flood that's happening in a single year?
It doesn't. He just says it and hopes you don't look any further into it.
Yeah.
How far below freezing? Well, in Antarctica, they have net melting when the temperature warms up to 14 degrees Fahrenheit along the coastal areas. So that means you'd have to have temperatures around 14 degrees Fahrenheit average for the summer from the cool season to remain. Let's say you only need 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and along the edge of the ice sheet, the average summer temperature is around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So you need an average temperature drop of about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's such a huge amount of cooling. Secular scientists who believe in uniformitarianism or present processes of climate to account for past climate are wondering where they can get such a radical climate change. And they
Okay. There is a well-known glacier in Argentina. It is a very warm environment, at least below the snow line. So, like, you have substantial melting. But you have enough snow going on, it doesn't matter. The glacier moves fast enough to replenish it. Like, there are plenty of warm weather glaciers.
It's a big problem. And that's why there's over 60 theories on the ice age, many of which have serious problems. Some of them have to do with things like reduced carbon dioxide. Some have to do with Arctic Ocean sea ice melting and producing the moisture, so they need moisture for the ice age. Some have to do with mountain building. But regardless, they all fall far short. An ice age is so difficult that when they try to model it in these computer simulations to try to get an ice age forming, they have to tweak their model a lot. And in one model, they did tweak their model. Oh, actually, they started with an ice sheet over the whole area that was glaciated of about 30 feet and expected it to grow. But it actually melted in 5 years. That shows you how difficult it is to form an ice age with present climatic conditions or even postulated past climatic conditions.
It shows you how difficult it is to get an accurate computer model because you have to account for so many different factors, you fucknut.
Yeah. 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 His face does look like a weird nut.
Well, there is one theory of the Ice Age, secular Ice Age theory, that is very popular right now. It's called the astronomical theory of the Ice Age, or the Milankovitch mechanism. And it's based mainly on small changes in the Earth's orbital geometry going around the sun. It's actually an old theory, and it's been brought back in the 1960s and 1970s because they think it explains Ice Age cycles. See, they believe in multiple ice ages, and they like cycles. But the problem with this theory is that it's too small. The solar radiation changes for an ice age.
Okay, so it's an argument from incredulity. That's all he's saying here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, it's too small to... No, it's not. You only need a small change to cause a global, literally global cascade. It's pretty simple.
Are way too small, and meteorologists have been pointing this out for well over 100 years. But then there's a question, well, if the Ice Age was part of biblical Earth history, where do we place it? Well, it's obvious that it's after the flood because we have nice sharp moraines and we have scratched bedrock that are very sharp and not weathered yet, so it's obvious that it happened after the flood. So this brings up the question of, well, could the Genesis flood have been the trigger, the climatic trigger for an ice age? Indeed, that is the case. How would that happen? How would the Genesis flood fulfill the 3 requirements for an ice age?
Oh, boy.
Here we are at the ocean.
Okay.
The oceans play a vital part in the development of an ice age. What are the requirements for an ice age? First, you need much cooler summers. Winters are already cold enough in most areas where the ice occurred. The second ingredient is much more moisture, and that's where the ocean comes in with much heavier evaporation. The third mechanism is it needs to persist year after year to let the snow and ice build up year after year. So those are the 3 requirements for an ice age. Well, could the Genesis flood have been the trigger, the climatic trigger for an ice age?
Isn't
Indeed,
he
that
supposed
is
to
the
be
case.
a meteorologist?
How would that happen? How would the
It would have to happen first. That's the thing. Like, it would have to have, like, you'd have to prove the flood first, which it didn't happen.
But you see, it did happen because he needs it to happen, even though it wouldn't do what he says.
Yep.
Yeah, like those 3 criteria he mentioned. That no, you don't actually. If you have any of the 3 criteria that he mentioned, plus a few other conditions he didn't mention, you can also get glacial accumulations and shit going on. Like, you don't have to even mess with the temperature if you increase the amount of precipitation, like you were saying earlier, in the areas where it accumulates and then it can flow down. Like, you can get moving glaciers even in high temperatures under those conditions.
So, like, just as an example, let's say we have a glacier in, I don't know, somewhere in Oregon. You have a particularly heavy snowfall one year, and the glacier grows a little bit. Now, since the glacier is bigger now, it's increased the local albedo, meaning that the local temperature is lower, which means that the next year it can go a little farther out and a little farther out. And the process keeps repeating year after year until you've completely changed the local area. Now, let's say we have this happening over an entire coastline, which can potentially happen. Well, now you have the entire side of a continent covered in ice. That's going to change a lot in the surrounding area.
And impact things like jet streams and whatnot. But
Bingo.
Another telling bit is that he's talking about how these changes, you change those conditions, and then glaciers will form eventually. He's hinting at the necessity of geological timescales, even though he's trying to cram it into a biblical flood chronology.
Yeah. And you were also right with jet streams. Like, glaciers obscenely mess with local wind patterns.
I can imagine.
What is... Beamsy, help me out. Windborne glacial sediments. Any idea what they're called? Luss. I'm just gonna keep coming back to
Lust. How do you spell that?
because
You spell that?
no, Luss. Loess. So here in Iowa, which I'm going to keep coming back to because we have an absolutely phenomenal record of glacial history.
Hey, Benji,
We have. Huh?
We've lost Benji. That's okay.
Oh, did. Oh, no.
He's there,
hopefully
but I'm not sure.
Hopefully he comes back soon. Anyway, we have these things called the Loess Hills. They're these massive, essentially dunes of windborne sediment from the last glaciation.
Sweet.
Yeah, and just the glacier was here, it messed with wind patterns so much. It just carved out a ton of sediment and dropped it on
How
the
long
side
would
of the
that
Missouri
take,
River
kind of
Valley.
thing? But that would take thousands and thousands of years, right?
I don't know how long it took to form.
It would take hundreds of years, but as the exact amount of time, we don't have anything to compare it to, so we can only make educated guesses.
Yeah.
But even so, also welcome back, Beamsy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You're fine. Well, apparently it's happened within the last 25,000 years at most, which probably took less time than that. And you can find loess all over Iowa too. It's just really big in the Loess Hills. All that to say, glaciers do crazy stuff with it.
Genesis flood fulfilled the three requirements for an ice age. First of all, the Genesis flood was a gigantic tectonic and volcanic event. And after the flood, we'd have all this volcanic ash and aerosols trapped in the stratosphere after the flood. And these reflect a lot of sunlight back to space, cooling the surface, especially the continental areas in summer. So there's where you get your...
Okay, there's a thing. Beamsy, you've been talking a lot about volcanic eruptions. When volcanic ash goes into the air, what does it do?
It really depends on how fine the silt is and on the prevailing wind. Some of it can just settle down, others if it stays up there for a long time.
But you mentioned settling down, so it does eventually come down, or at least some of it does?
Yes.
So shouldn't we have a worldwide volcanic dusting?
Yes, we should. At the scale and what they're talking about, as I was mentioning before, the sheer magnitude of all those igneous provinces, it would just be mind-numbingly massive. And I think the last thing that Noah and his family would worry about would be water.
For real.
I mean, let's see. I'm not going to pull it up, but there's a fossil site called I think something Ashbed fossil site. I think Ashfall, something like that. Basically, ash from a volcanic eruption fell in a lake and killed everything in the area, and so you just have a bunch of beautiful fossils preserved because nothing was around to decompose them.
Yeah, it's Ashfall, northeastern Nebraska, Ashfall fossil beds.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Fascinating. I'm also curious, what would happen if you had global eruptions that resulted in enough ash to create a layer in the geological column, and you sprinkled that over a nascent ice sheet? What would that do to the albedo?
It would actually act as an insulator. You only need about an inch of stuff on top of an ice sheet to insulate it, which would only prolong the glaciation.
Indeed. Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking of like how when snow and ice gets near something that's not snow and ice, like a tree or whatever, the because of the albedo difference, the radiant heat off of the object fucks up the ice and snow. It's radiant. It's a circle around it. But then when you mention that, I'm thinking of around here we get tons of snow in the winter, like 10 feet on an average winter. And when it's piled up, they plow parking lots and whatnot, and they make a mountain. It gets all kinds of dirt and crap mixed in. And when it finally gets warm at the end of the winter, it melts a little bit, and then all the dirt forms a shell around it. and it just
and it
stays there
takes
for
months
weeks.
to fully disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, just if there was enough volcanism for that to happen, here's what would happen. Beamsy, do you know the context for this picture?
I think I recognize the clip.
This is the Great Dying. It's the
Hmm.
single largest mass extinction event to ever happen.
Oh, I've heard of that.
I mentioned it before.
99% of life on Earth gone forever.
That's why I keep mentioning the Siberian traps. It's because that's what caused it.
That's the
Yeah.
Permian Triassic extinction
Siberians.
event.
Yeah.
Yep. Like,
Late Permian, end Permian. Oh, okay, yeah, gotcha.
Life on land was obliterated. Life in the sea was melted away by the acidic level of the acid of the water.
Yep.
The
Well,
oxygen
frankly-
level in the
sorry, go ahead.
the oxygen level just dropped to near zero.
Frankly, it's
That's rude.
insane that life survived.
God
Yeah,
push
it
the
just
reset button.
goes to show how adaptable things can be. Because I mean, like,
Although that said,
No, that's not
I-
true because bacteria would have survived. Like, there's no way.
some
Like,
bacteria
life is
macroscopic
could have survived.
life.
But then we'd have
It's
to
insane
Right,
that
right.
re-evolve
macroscopic
multicellularity and then re-evolve all the phylogeny.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to find something like that in the fossil record, though, to see like a previous incarnation of multicellular life that got wiped out by a previous cataclysm, and find out that maybe instead of tetrapods there were,
I mean, that kind of
eight-legged
did
things.
happen.
This is
Yeah.
the closest it's ever been. The Great Dying was the closest.
I'm thinking of the Ediacaran. There was an entire era of multicellular life before the Cambrian, almost all of which completely disappeared as far as we know, and then the Cambrian happened. So we kind of saw that.
So there was like a reset back to at least very basic multicellularity.
Yeah. And though also, you see this little furry guy here in the middle of the picture?
Yeah, I was wondering about him.
So this is Lystrosaurus. And it is...
No, that's not Lystrosaurus. I've played Ark. That's not. What it is.
Well, this is the fluffy,
that's a penis
cute
lizard.
version.
Okay.
Anyway, Lystrosaurus is kind of an enigma because it's one of the... I think it makes up 90% of the vertebrate biomass during and right after the Great Dying. Like,
Okay.
everything else was gone. These things just thrived somehow.
They were digging the hellscape, were they?
And then, for some reason, as soon as things became normal again, they just disappeared. Like, they evolved for the chaos and death, and then once it was over, their time was done.
Well, I mean, it may have been that they had certain selective things that helped them survive through a catastrophe, but didn't allow them to compete with other things, kind of.
Or once other things started
like,
emerging again,
Lo-
they had to
logically
adapt so
speaking,
fast
yes.
that they effectively vanished.
Logically speaking, yes. But just speaking as a paleontologist, it's just, what the hell, life?
This is the true face of a demon. The demons were sent to Earth
Yeah.
to wipe out all life, and when their job was done, they just disappeared.
I'm sold. That's it. Yeah.
It fits. I was going to say hellhounds, but very similar. It absolutely fits.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, there are some less cute art versions.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then there's this one from
those
the
look a
latest
little
Jurassic Park movie, which actually isn't
Yeah.
too bad and is pretty cute for once.
I know. Before I was thinking I've never seen hellhounds look so cute in a depiction, but then some of these other ones, I'm like, okay, that's a little bit more monstrous.
Yeah, they weren't mammals, but they weren't reptiles. They were something. It was this way of putting them.
They couldn't be. Hey, no
They were
transitional
Darwin's
forms
finches.
have ever been found. Thank you.
Ever.
Ever.
Oh yeah, they were featured in Walking with Monsters, and they actually had a fun segment devoted to them.
Or Lystros.
Yeah, they're cute. I like them a lot.
Summertime cooling is by all this volcanism, but volcanic ash and aerosols filter out with it.
Here, wait a
So there's
sec.
where you get.
Is it just me, or does he look like a Lystrosaurus?
Oh, you've uncovered a secret.
The reptoids.
The mammal-like reptoids.
Okay.
Get your summertime cooling is by all this volcanism, but volcanic ash and aerosols filter out within a matter of months to years. So there needs to be a mechanism to replenish the aerosols, and aerosols are very small particles, about a micron in diameter. You need a mechanism to replenish the aerosols and ash, and indeed you do. During the Ice Age, the Earth was still not quite in equilibrium from the flood, so you had a little bit of tectonics, a lot of volcanism going off. We have a lot of ash beds and other volcanic material indicating much higher volcanism during the Ice Age, and this would replenish the volcanic ash and aerosols in the stratosphere and keep the summer cooling continuing.
Now, keep in mind, he's basically referring to just after the flood. So he's referring to about 2346 BC, right? So this is like just over like 5,000 years ago. All of this is going on.
And as I was explaining before, just measuring on one of the rocks that you can actually use, not all of them, because the ignatholite is only one of the rocks that you actually use to get an entire sample. I just used one just to get an idea of the ejector, and that was already getting into absurd numbers. For if that happened in, well, even over 100 years, the Great Reset would be an understatement.
The Great Dying
Yeah, that's-
Part 2.
But it's not just that. It's like it's amazing that sort of the Egyptians didn't note this ice age that was happening and have them dressed in furs and things. Because
The Egyptians, the Japanese,
right,
the,
right,
the
Chinese.
Sumerians,
Wasn't he just talking
the
about how
Indians.
a snowball Earth situation was self-perpetuating and would require a divine intervention miracle to break it and cause Earth to return to its original state? And now he's saying you need constant volcanism to keep the atmosphere messed up enough for the Ice Age to continue and grow.
You're asking him to be consistent.
Ah, yes, my bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I think maybe we get to like 48-ish minutes and call it good, because we're almost at 3 hours.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Going
That'd
by
be
this
great,
pace,
actually.
it'll be 6.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's hop to it.
Yep.
These stratovolcanoes we have in the Cascades, like Mount Hood, is just one of many hundreds of post-flood volcanoes that were going off immediately after the flood for quite a while, probably because the Earth was still out of equilibrium from the flood and was still settling down. To the north of us, we can see 3 other stratovolcanoes, Mount
Can you
Adams,
give any
Mount
evidence
Rainier,
for
and then
that?
Mount St. Helens with the top blown off. Geological equilibrium means that the Earth had a huge tectonics, and as a result had a lot of cracks and magma coming up, causing a lot of volcanism. We had a lot of faulting. It took a while to settle down, and everything slow up, and the volcanoes lessen, so that we only have just a little bit of volcanism now, and only small Earth movements going on. In general, we would consider that geological equilibrium at the moment, even though we still have movements of faults and volcanoes going up, but it looks like a lot less than immediately after the flood. Now, we know that volcanoes cause
It's weird
cooling.
how when
In
you
fact, global
compress
cooling,
millions of years of time into 1 year, it looks like the planet is much more geologically active in that 1 year.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you put all the numbers that I was talking about and put into 1 year, it comes to why are we alive? How are we alive?
Yep,
Why
that's-
is life?
Well,
Why
that
Lystro?
one- that one's a
Why
different-
Lystrosaurus?
Mhm.
Why?
I think he just solved the mystery of life. Lystrosaurus came down after the flood, created all the disasters and everything he's talking about, and when he left, life was able to flourish.
Wait.
Lystrosaurus died for our sins.
What if Lystrosaurus is Lucifer?
Dun,
Oh, no.
dun, dun.
Lystrosaurus came down, caused all hell to break loose, and then was banished.
Yeah, the great dying happens to coincide with the biblical fall of the angels. That's it right
The
there.
Lystrosaurus is a fallen angel. Oh, now I've heard it all. You know what? What's tragic is that is not the wackiest thing I've ever heard in a debate. That's the tragic thing.
We are really
Behold
going on the
face of your
tangents, aren't we?
God.
Yeah. I think this has melted my brain just a little bit.
Behold
just a
the
little
face of Satan.
It's look, it's got opposable thumbs. Well, okay, not quite, but close.
Got the mark of the beast on
tusks
its
of
foot.
evil.
It's got opposable lips, more like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you want to put a pin in it there, and we'll do a part 2 at some point? Now, I'm happy to come back and do part 2. Definitely.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah, I know you wanted to get to the halfway mark, but that's a really good
Oh.
stopping point, I think.
I think so.
Should I change the thumbnail to? Should I put like demon horns on this thing and put it on the thumbnail?
The fucking
Do it on the
demons.
part 2.
It has to be for part 2 because
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
We've
we'll
had-
do.
we've had the epiphany of this is the truth behind everything.
Oh shit! What should
Look,
I call
you
it?
know what?
You wanted
We're
me to do
going
a
through
snappy
this
subtitle,
And making
like,
these
what-
jokes.
you
But
wanted me to do,
seriously,
like,
it's a better
snappy title.
explanation than the. Sorry, Doc. Go.
Sorry, you wanted me to do a snappy title. How should I incorporate this thing, Satan, and the Ice Age?
Oh well, you need to get like a background shot from the Ice Age cartoon, right? That's what you've got to do because that's immediately recognizable.
Yeah.
And maybe
and
one with
put-
people running away.
Maybe. Like,
Yeah,
this is already a
and-
transparent PNG. I can just plop it anywhere.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
drop him on the background and like do a little coloration to make it look like hellish and demonic and shit, and then be like, behold the face of your destroyer or something.
I'm sorry, my brain went to an icy background with him in the foreground, and just at his feet is Scrat holding a Bible, clubbing the four of us with the Bible.
Okay, that's perfect.
Well, then again, I could just use this picture and like maybe add a little bit to it.
Yeah, but
Sure.
I'm sorry, when you were talking about that, it was sort of he's lording over Scrat that's going to club us with a Bible instead of an acorn in an icy field.
Satan Lystrosaurus versus Scrat.
And you
No,
know
she-
what?
Scrat is his minion.
This makes more sense than the flood. Do we all realize that? Like,
Yeah.
It's really, that's why they say that their story is the truth, because it's really hard to make up shit that nonsensical.
This is going to be great. All right, well, I guess we're going to bring it to a close then. Thanks for coming, everybody. Let's see, Mark,
don't
Ember,
forget to
any
like
shilling you'd
and
like to do?
subscribe. Oh yeah, I'll shill. I'll always shill. I think start with Ember. He came in, and I don't think we had an intro really for Ember, so I think he should really go.
Oh, it's all good. Whatever order and whatever things. Hello, future people. First subscribe here, and then go to @ better than Ember. That's my channel, and come join me for shenanigans and nonsense and debunking and all that fun stuff. And most of these people are there for much of the time, so yeah, you get to see Mark and Beamsy.
Wait.
Yeah.
Titan just mentioned Raptor Jesus.
Oh yeah, didn't that
we can have
Skylar
we can have this
Fictions
demon thing versus Raptor Jesus.
Demon Lystro?
Yes, versus Raptor Jesus.
Oh, we got to come up with a name for it. How about Lystro Bub, or
Beelza
Lystro, or
Beelzosaurus.
No, they're
Beelzosaurus.
Lucistro. No.
Lystro.
Well, think about it.
I'm trying to
this is a
combine
work in
Lucifer and
progress.
Lystro. It's just not working.
You take the bub from
thanks,
Beelzebub and Lystro from Lystrosaurus, so Lystro.
And a Pokemon
Okay,
ball.
I'm looking through a list of demonic names.
Yeah.
Wait. Lilithstrosaurus.
Make it all seductive and whatnot.
You'd have to put a bit more of a lisp in there to really make it seductive. Lystrosaurus. I said lisp, not Gollum.
Well, that's why it's getting so hot in here.
I can't take any more clothes off, sorry.
Balistro.
Maybe.
Don't worry, we'll have something for you people at some point. We'll come up with something that'll be pretty fun.
Yeah.
But yes, our
Speaking
new
of having something,
glorious
your turn to
demonic
show, Mark.
overlord of atheism.
Yep.
We're no
Should
longer
we just make
atheists, we're
this thing our
listorians.
mascot with no without explaining it.
The Lystro cult.
We're
We're
listorians.
We can be the 5 horsemen of the apocalypse with this thing as our leader.
No, we're the
God.
4 and we're riding them.
Yes. Yes.
Fucking perfect.
Okay, sorry, I have to share this with my girlfriend.
What?
So, could you draw us riding demonic versions of this?
First of all, I don't draw people well, or hardly ever.
Well, I'm a dinosaur.
Either way. Second of all, no.
Fair.
I
Totally
refuse.
fair.
Do it yourself.
Fine, I'll do it in MS Paint.
Love it.
Sorry, I think she just died.
Hey, I started in MS Paint. Of course, it was still Paintbrush back then, but details.
Yeah.
It's better that than a Diptrodon anyway.
True, easier to ride.
Oh, that would be debatable, considering the Diptrodon is more fluffy. It's a giant wombat.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you said Diprotodon.
Had it.
I thought you were saying Dimetrodon.
No, Diptrodon. Diptrodon. The giant wombat.
Yeah, giant wombat.
Hey man, like I if I can put in a request to Dr. Dino's girlfriend to draw me on a parasa. So
On a
yeah.
parasaur.
No, parasa. What is it? The the penis pony.
Paraceratherium.
Paraceratherium, yes.
So you're saying you want to be drawn riding a penis pony?
Yes. Don't you? What's wrong with you, sir?
Sorry, I'll get her.
Hey,
reaction.
no hate.
So, honey, Mark here would like you to draw him on the dick horse.
I am not drawing the ugly giraffe horse.
Aw.
Why?
Aw.
Why do you
Crush my dreams. Crush my dreams.
Okay, I see how this is having to go then. We'll have Dino riding the Literasaur. I have to be on the Ditrodon because I'm the one that brought it up.
Yes, each
Mark
of us
is
pick a
riding
prehistoric
penis.
animal.
Oh, God, no.
Just a penis.
No.
Just
This right here is a sign that we've
Hey.
been on the stream too long.
it is Pride Month. I'm
Hell yeah. Get down with your bad self.
How about you,
Yeah.
Ember? What are you gonna ride?
Nothing's really come up organically. I'd have to default to my giant purple butterfly.
It has to be some
Wasn't
ancient
there
creature.
a ancient? What's the moth? Is that a There was a
What about a
prehistoric moth.
Meganura, a giant dragonfly?
Could possibly work, I suppose. It's a big damn dragonfly, though.
There's
Lymantria.
also a giant centipede in the fossil record.
It's not really a centipede. It was closer to a millipede, but
Well,
yeah.
It's similar enough.
The Arthroplea, if you're what you're talking about.
Yeah, Arthroplura, yeah.
Well, it is bigger than he is.
I mean,
no,
you want
there was
an insect.
The Lymantria. I think
Imantra?
it was. Yeah, wasn't it the
Oh,
giant moth in Ark?
that's an arc creature.
God damn it!
Yeah.
Ark lied to me.
Here, I could do this Jechalopterus, giant sea scorpion.
Holy crap.
But that would mean Ember is now Aquaman.
Well, shit.
Yes. Well, okay, here's your options for giant bugs.
It'd just be
Scorpion?
a trilobite.
Millipede, trilobite, or dragonfly.
Well,
Like
this is a tricky one because
I'd go the Eurythrid because they're better.
yeah, the different one. I'm most inclined towards dragonfly, but I know somebody who took the dragonfly as like their personal symbol thing, and so I feel like symbolically that would be like, you know.
I think you're overthinking this.
Yes,
really
definitely.
overthinking this.
Well, my girlfriend just brought up a good point. You could have it like latched onto your back.
Oh, then
Like
I'd
a
have
jetpack.
dragonfly wings, kind of.
Yeah.
I would
borrow
still
some.
go for the I'll still go for the Eurythrid because if you're really lonely on those late nights, you've always got the spare nipple clamps.
Wow.
In case of emergency.
Yeah, you've got to have them around somewhere.
I don't know. I feel like that looks so close to a lobster, I might eat it at some point.
It's actually more closer to a scorpion.
It details.
Well,
I still might eat it.
I can't deny that because I have eaten scorpions, so they're quite
Well,
tasty. If not a
I
bit
think
crunchy.
I think now that we've decided is a good time to call it quits.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us on. This has been a wild ride and a lot of fun. So
I mean,
yeah,
this,
awesome.
this was a great stream.
Beamsy, are you free tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be around.
We could
Mark
try
is a
again tomorrow,
brony
maybe a bit
confirmed.
later if you need it.
Oh no, don't need the later. It was just more that I had that epiphany that was sort of.
Oh, that's a good idea. Titan's saying do the rainbow dinosaurs in rainbow colors for Pride. Hey, do you know how to highlight comments in StreamYard? I know you're really new to this, Dr. Dino.
I click it.
Yeah.
That
you go.
works.
I mean, that's a night. I can get behind that idea. I think I'll do two. One where it is all satanic, and then one with pride colors.
Yeah, it's hard to mix satanic with pride, really, isn't it? Like it's.
The
the
tricky
Christians
bit-
manage it somehow, but I don't know how they do it because.
I mean, if y'all send me your favorite colors, I could figure out how to do that.
Purple.
Green.
Yeah, I'm going purple as well.
I'd be blue, so.
Am I honestly going to be riding a purple dick pony? This is going to be awesome.
Mark
Hey,
his giant
dream over.
purple dildo.
Right.